So very good afternoon to everybody. Today we are going to start the revision sessions for FM, right? This is a pre-revision session for FM, right? So make sure that you take full advantage of this, right? Full advantage of these sessions, and these sessions are going to be uploaded on YouTube as well, right? So I'll divide every day ka session in two parts, right? What will be the two parts? Basically, first we revise the whole part, that is investment appraisal, FM function, everything. We'll divide it into two parts. I think there will be a break in between. We're starting around 2:15. It takes for investment appraisal and FM function around 1.5 hours to revise the full theory or all the basic what? Yeah, full complete syllabus. I think I have mapped the whole syllabus here. Obviously, it is full syllabus revision, right? Correct. So if you have seen the schedule may have seen that I've shown that the whole portion will be covered, right? So first what we'll do is, first I'll start with the full revision, correct? Then I'll give you important questions that can come up from this investment appraisal part, FM function theory part, whatever it is, right? We'll discuss one or two questions, correct? Also, recently there's a mock that had come up, correct? Uska section C questions we will discuss. The pre-December mock that has come up, uska section C question we will discuss. These two things will happen here, right? So first I'll start with the revision. When I'm doing the revision, hold your doubts, okay? Once we are done, and in the second part, first I'll give you important questions that can come up from that part, okay? And then probably you can ask your doubts, okay? At the end, when last half an hour, 15 minutes is remaining, that last half an hour is with you, okay? So now whoever is there, okay, sit with the notes, right? Sit with my notes. You don't have to spare too much or don't have to take too much tension, right? Just sit with the notes, sit back, hear to what I'm saying, okay? When I say I'm revising the whole syllabus, I'm going to go point by point into every part, right? There are a lot of tables, there are a lot of sums that are solved, there are a lot of MCQs that you could solve. Now logically what you should do today, if I'm doing investment appraisal ka revision, right? Today let's say you're done by 4:30, 4:15, 4:30 tak the class will end. Now, once you're done today with the investment appraisal and basics part revision, right? I would recommend you do all section A and B questions and C questions that are there. Right? Correct. So try to complete them today itself. Okay. So today to up till tomorrow 2 p.m. solve all the questions of what investment appraisal. I know it's a very tough task, correct? But tonight, whatever today, from today to tomorrow, you have almost 22 hours. In that investment appraisal, I'll give you important section C questions. Solve them once in Excel without seeing. Okay. Right. Then check it. Then section A and B questions of investment appraisal that are there. Right. Those also you can solve. So all in all, if you ask me, it will be a journey where I'll revise here all the concepts. You have to do all the practice. Okay. So that is how the basic journey works out. Today we are going to have first thing before even starting. I don't know how many of you know this, that basically I have mapped chapters and portions, correct? These chapters as per the Kaplan study text, okay? So chapter 1, 11, 12 and 19, 1, 11, 12 and 19 are what? Basics of FM, correct? Basics of FM. Then there is investment appraisal, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, investment appraisal part, right? Then there is working capital management 7, 8, 9, 10, correct? Then sources of capital, cost of capital, dividend policy. Now the ACCA is very clear that section C question can be asked from three parts of the portion: investment appraisal, working capital management, and sources of capital and cost of capital and dividend policy. This is the only part from where section C questions will come up, right? So if you didn't know this, please mark this first, correct? I don't know how many of you know this. A lot of you don't know this also, right? You start studying and have no idea what will come in exam and what will not come, correct? So make a note of this first, right? Have a look. So make a note. If you've not made a note, make a note. Risk management pay. Now see, I'll tell you, for A and B, the whole syllabus is open, right? From wherever, buddy, for him. You can practice from study up directly if you want, right? That to access you must have be having, correct? So that is there. You can, I'll give you section C questions. You can do those section C questions, no issues. Okay. फिर risk management का part and business valuation, right? Now see A and B, section A and B. I hope everyone knows. That also I think now as Fahim has asked, maybe you don't even know how the paper pattern is. This is how the paper pattern is. Section C will have 15 MCQs of 2 marks. Okay. 15 MCQ, each MCQ of 2 marks. So 30 marks there. Section B, there will be 3 case studies. Each case study will have 5 MCQs. So 15 MCQs of that part of 2 marks each. Correct? Section C has 2 questions. Question 1 and question 2. Both of 20 mark. Right? Where 10 to 14 mark practical comes up and 6 to 10 marks depending theory comes up. Right? Question 2 also same weightage is there. The weightage will minimum 10 mark practical comes up, maximum up to 14 to 15 marks practical can come up. Minimum theory comes up 6 marks, maximum can go to 10. So there will be a what? A combination of both that you need to understand, right? Combination has to be there, right? Then if you don't know this, first thing you know, you have to know this because exam is almost 10 days away. If you're asking from where to practice, so this is how the paper pattern is, okay? Right? So that is how it is. Then section A and B, that is these 60 marks or 30 MCQs can come from anywhere, right? But what I have seen over the time, correct? My part or my prediction says that risk management, that is forex risk management and interest rate risk management, right, will 100% there will be what, 100 200% there is going to be one or minimum 2 questions from these 3 chapters. If you are lucky enough, you will get 3 questions from the section B with 3 sections or 3 questions you will get from this, right? Risk management, that is forex risk management, interest rate risk management and business valuation. If you are lucky, 3 section B questions directly from here, or minimum 1 to from these 3 chapters 1 section B question comes up. 2 also I have seen come up, one on forex, one on interest rate risk and one on business valuation, right? So out of the 3, 2 to minimum, 1 to minimum comes up, maximum 3 can also come up, 2 can also come up. So if I am doing studying up till now, if I have not studied at all, then logically क्या होना चाहिए? These parts for section B I should do and these part for section C I should what? Focus on. That is how things will work out in your favor. Then section A is an open book or 15 पूरा book में से from wherever it is, it can come from any part, right? Chal. So if you are comfortable with this, quickly let's start with the first chapter, that is FM functions, right? The basics of FM. The basic definition of FM is very simple: efficient acquisition of financial resources, efficient allocation of financial resources, which helps company fulfill the objective of a company, correct? So what are objectives of the company? Then comes what are the objective of a company? Primary objective and secondary objective. Primary objective is shareholder wealth maximization, and that is a financial objective. Questions have been asked whether shareholder wealth maximization is a financial objective or no. Financial objective, how to identify? Basically, if the implication is increase in what, some value or some number, then it will lead to what? Tell me. Basically financial objective. Secondary objective are profit maximization, EPS growth, market share increase, geographical growth, customer satisfaction, social responsibility, sale or revenue maximization, correct? In that these 3 are non-financial, correct? And remaining, or these 4 rather, are non-financial. Remaining are what? Tell me. Financial objectives, right? Have a look. Then 3 decisions of a financial manager are 3 decisions: financing decision, investment decision, dividend decision, correct? Have a look. From which source of finance will you bring the funds, correct? Financing decision, investment decision, how much you will invest in non-current asset or current assets, right? And then whether for short-term or long-term investment in assets, correct? Dividend decision, how much dividend to pay, how much retained earnings to keep, what dividend policy to follow. So 3 decisions of a financial: financing, investment, dividend, right? Financing is from where will you bring the money, investment is where will you invest the money. Dividend is once all this business is run, dividend is earned. How will you tell me? Or how much dividend will you pay? Right? Have a look. Then let's go one more step ahead. Stakeholder theory says stakeholders are party who get affected by what decision taken by an organization, right? And types of stakeholders. There are three types of stakeholders, basically two types, but they could be divided into three types as well. Internal stakeholder, director, employees are internal stakeholder. Connected may there are shareholder, competitor, debt holder, bank loan, supplier, customer, right? These are people who have first layer any decision taken by the organization. The most impact will be on director or employees, right? And the second would be what on your tell me shareholder, debt holder, competitor, customer, supplier, and last would be your external stakeholder. External stakeholder are lawmaker, government, pressure groups, society at a large. Correct. That is how it is. But if it is only internal and external, the connected go in the external stakeholder. Correct. All shareholders are stakeholders in the company, but all stakeholders. Stakeholder is a wider term than shareholder. Then let's go ahead. Profit format, I think this though you must have done. TSR. TSR is one of the most important formula that is there, right? Total shareholder return. Total shareholder return is what? Very important, correct? Because the formula is very simple. Total dividend received has to be interim plus final both, right? Plus the share price at the end of the year divided by share price at the beginning of the year. The whole divided by the whole this plus this divided by share price at the beginning of the year. This is TSR, right? Interim and final both dividend will be included in the formula. Have a look. If you want to practice, you can practice questions from here also. I have taken n number of questions from either what your study hub or your what Kaplan, right? Then you have something called as agency theory. What is agency theory? Agency theory is very simple, straightforward. Shareholder or principal, right? And agent. Shareholders are principals and director or managers are agents appointed by the principal. Director or agent work on behalf of the what shareholders with third parties. But if anything goes wrong, who is to be held responsible? The shareholder or principal, right? There is a theory of goal congruence that shareholder and director should have their goal aligned. That is, there should be a goal congruence. If there is a lot of risk that you take, the reward also has to be higher, right? But what happens? There is a lack of goal congruence because generally what happens? Agents or directors are given what? Basically salaries, right? So their salary and everything depends on how the performance is, right? Then there is a small part of managerial remuneration. Those are managerial remuneration schemes, how you should design a managerial remuneration or reward scheme. The factors to be considered are very simple. See, here there is generally I give an example where manipulation of sales and everything happens, right? But I would say that from exam point of view, managerial remuneration, knowing the basic what factors is only important, right? Clearly defined plus impossible to manipulate and easy to monitor. Link reward to shareholder wealth maximization. Match time horizon of manager and shareholder. Manager should be encouraged to make more or take more risk like shareholders. See, they want everything to be aligned. They want what? Managers to be seen as, or they should themselves be what? Owners. One of the way to give managerial remuneration is ESOPs, executive stock option plans or employee stock option plans, right? Equity share are issued to employees who work in the organization for some minimum period, which is decided in the ESOP plans. Correct? Equity shares are issued to employees at a discount to market price. In ESOPs, what happens generally is equity shares are issued, right, to employees who work for certain minimum period, 3-4 period ka lock-in, 3-4 year ka lock-in period. Then they are issued at generally at a discount given to an employee. Correct? And employees after applying for ESOPs will be able to sell the shares only after a mandatory. So after purchasing also they have a mandatory lock-in period, right? Employees become part owner of the company. But advantages and disadvantages of ESOP was what? Advantages, you make the employee feel, "Arey Baba, I am what? Owner of the company." Company will be able to raise capital what? Through this ESOP issue and save a lot of cost, because if they go for an IPO or an FPO, there will be a lot of cost that is involved. But the disadvantage is that an employee can work as hard as he want, right? But it will not really increase the share price, correct? And the share price may go down after an ESOP issue because market might perceive that these people are taking money from employees. That means the owners do not have a lot of confidence in the business. The lock-in period will be applicable to normal employee, but may not be applicable to senior directors and founders, and they may sell the shares immediately after ESOP issue. ESOPs may lead to what? Dilution of control. That means you give certain 10-20% holding to the employees, and the remaining or the old shareholders will lose control. Then in corporate governance, basically applied to listed companies, correct? Is what 51% or more of the board should consist of INDs. What are INDs? INDs are nothing but independent non-executive directors. Independent non-executive directors. What are independent non-executive directors? They are not working full-time in the organization, and they are independent. They are not at all related with the company. Correct. So the word is independent non-executive directors. Right. So corporate governance says that 51% or more of the board should consist of INEDs. Right. Chairman of meeting and MD of company should not be the same. Correct. Audit and remuneration committee should consist of only INDs, right? Then every director should nominate himself for reappointment every 3 years, and setting fees for attending meeting is paid to INDs. No salary is ever paid. So INDs never work for a salary. They are not employed by the organization. Correct. And then not for profit organization. Not for profit organization basically have 3 E's of value for money. Correct. So what are the 3 E's? Economy, efficiency, effectiveness. Economy relates to what? Basically cheaper inputs, correct, or the cheapest inputs but the best quality. Here MCQs have been asked where they ask you that they are going to buy some inputs and they are going to buy best quality inputs, or they will say cheaper quality input at cheaper rate. Cheap quality not allowed. You have to have the best quality inputs at the cheapest possible rate. Efficiency means what? Work is carried out in a better manner and lesser time is there. That is efficient process. Correct. Efficient process means generally if let's say a doctor is there, he before a new doctor comes in, he used to only do 20 surgeries. Now with the new doctor, what are you able to do? 40 surgeries. Or maybe first you are using a lot of paper, a new process has come up, any new process comes up, and because of which basically you are saving time or resources, that is nothing but efficient. Correct. Efficiency. Then comes effectiveness means what? Tell me. With the use of economic inputs and efficient processes, you can fulfill your tasks or fulfill your what? Tell me. Basically fulfill your objectives effectively, right? That is how NFPO or not for profit organizations work out. Have a look. Basic investment appraisal, right? So this was FM function for you, right? Now let's move to the next chapter. The next chapter is the basic investment appraisal chapter that is there, right? So here we'll first learn the time value of money, correct? So basically we'll start with ROCE or ARR. Questions have come up in section A on ROCE or ARR, right? Even section C question has come up on ROCE or ARR. What is ROCE? Return on capital employed. It can be calculated by 2 ways. ROCE by initial investment method, ROCE by average investment method, correct? So ROCE by initial investment, correct, is something like this. We have the ROCE by initial investment. Have a look at the formula. ROCE formula, have a look. ROCE formula is very simple. What is the formula? Average PBIT. How do you find average PBIT? In average PBIT, 2-3 rules are there. Even if there is a zero profit, you have to take that profit. Even if there is a loss in the PBIT, you have to consider the loss. You have to deduct the loss, right? And that year will be added. So if you have 5 year ka profit and loss and zero profit, whatever it is, profit or loss or zero profit, all three should be added. Let's say 5 year ka data given, all three add, or all 5 year ka data may loss also to be added, zero profit also to be added, positive profit also to be added, divided by the number of years the PBIT is given, correct? The other way of asking PBIT would be basically just asking PBIT or asking ROC for 1 year, where instead of average PBIT you will use normal PBIT, and that divided by initial investment. A lot of questions on this have been asked before, right? On what? ROC. Then ROC mein there is something called as ROC by average investment. Average investment would possibly be what? The initial investment plus scrap value divided by 2. Correct or not? Have a look. Initial investment plus scrap value divided by 2. So instead of what? Tell me. Your average PBT. At times, what they will do, they will give you cash flow and they will say go to PBT. So whenever you are going from cash flow to PBT, have a look. When you want to go from profit approach to cash flow approach, right? ये देखो profit approach you are going to what? Cash flow approach, and from cash flow approach you are going to what? Profit approach, correct? So from cash flow, at times in question they will give you what? Cash flow from operations or cash flow from operating activities, and you have to go to what? PBIT. So if you want to go from PBIT or cash flow to PBIT, you will deduct depreciation and go, right? That is how you go from cash flow to PBIT, right? Average investment is nothing but average PBIT divided by average investment. Average investment is nothing but opening plus closing divided by 2, or initial investment plus scrap value divided by 2, right? ROC is the only method which uses what? Profits. All other methods use cash flows. Have a look. Then we did what? Profit. Now see, when there are cash flows given like this from the cash flow, right? If nothing is given, you will consider SLM basis as the depreciation method, correct? Then second type of ROC, I told you that when only 1 year data is given, single year data considered, the formula will be PBIT divided by capital employed. Capital employed will be nothing but what? Non-current asset plus current asset minus current liabilities. Have a look. Or it could be also said as total asset minus current liabilities, or it could also be equity share capital plus reserves and non-current liabilities. So however you want to do it, ROC 2 or 3 type का question. See, the examiner is very interested कि जो easy वाला part है, he would want to ask you that first, correct? Then decision criteria for ROC is very simple. Project A, project B. Project A 15%, project B 18%, you will choose project B. But if there is a target ROC of 18% and your actual ROC is 15%, project will be declined, right? 20% project will be what? Basically taken care of. Then payback period is the amount of time required by a project cash inflow to completely receive back the investment done in the project. So let's say when payback period is directly in years. So let's say 100, I have invested 30, 40, 30 I got. So I got my 100 back in 3 years. So 3 years is my payback period. But what if the payback period is between 2 years? That means here if you have a look, payback period is between second and third year, right? So how to calculate how many months? So at times the question asks that write the years in points. So you will write 2.33 years here. So this 20 that you were about to receive in the next year and the total received. So about to receive divided by total received will be your 2.33 years. Then it will be what? 2 years plus 20 by 60 into 12 months. This will be how it is. And here you will always round up the number of months. I might have written a note below here. Number of months in payback period. Whenever you're calculating, correct? 0.01 month is 1 month, correct? So this is how it is. Then you have what? Two types of cash flow. When it is an uneven cash flow, you do whatever we have done. If it is an even cash flow, there is a formula method. The formula method is very simple. Even cash flow is what? Same cash flow repeated for n number of years, correct? So initial investment divided by even cash flow repeating for n years. So 500 is your initial investment divided by 125. That is something that you can use. Formula method basically. This is a formula for payback period where there is even cash flow that is there. Then we went into time value of money by simple interest method and by compound interest method. Simple interest method says what? Every year your interest or your discounting rate, correct? First we will say there is a future value formula. Future value formula says what? At a simple interest method, 100 growing by 8% every year. So 100, if you keep for 1 year it will be 108. Then if you keep it for 2 years it will be 8% for 2 years on the same 100 principle, correct? Compounding is not there. So the formula will come to at future value after n years is equal to initial investment or present value of initial investment plus the present value or initial investment into IR percentage into n. N is nothing but the number of years you will keep the investment, correct? उसके बाद time value or future value by compounding interest method. Compounding interest method is simple. Let's say it is yearly compounded. 100 invested for 2 years for 8%. 100 will grow to 108 at the end of first year. Then 108 will be reinvested. And in second year, it will become not 116, but 116.5. 0.64. So future value formula here will be present value plus present value into interest rate percentage, or actually the formula is what? FV, or future value after any years, is equal to present value now into 1 plus interest rate raised to n. So the formula for present value, now see, from here only, from future value only you get the present value formula, but only we are only going to do for what? Your compounding method, correct? So 7,500 received after 3 years. So how is the formula, right? From the future value formula we get the present value formula. Present value is equal to future value into 1 divided by 1 plus the discounting rate raised to n. Present value comes to future value into 1 plus interest rate percentage raised to minus n, because from denominator it comes to numerator. This is how the, I don't know whether you know the derivation of the formula, but we generally do what? Derivation of formula we do in class, correct? Have a look, right? So this is how, so you get all the future values that are there, you pull and bring them to 0 years, correct? That is what the cash flow discounting method says. Now see, if I tell you that boss, invest something now, and I give you future values, you have to pull all the future values and bring it to 0 year and compare it with your initial investment. If the initial investment, now have a look, that method of bringing all the cash flows from the future and comparing it with the NPV, or comparing it with the initial investment, that is only called what? NPV, correct? So if you have a look, NPV ka formula also we must have derived. So NPV ka basic formula, I don't know whether you know the formula of NPV. NPV ka formula is initial investment in negative plus sum of present value of all future cash flows, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, right? That is how it is, correct? Have a look, right? So if it is positive, using this formula, if it is positive, accept the project. If it is negative, reject the project. If it is positive, you accept the project. That means initial investment is lower and sum of present value of all future cash flow is higher, right? Then that only means, right, that if you look at NPV negative, initial investment is higher, sum of present value of all future cash flow is lower. So in that case, there will be a negative NPV, correct? So at negative, you will reject the project. At positive, you will accept the project. When NPV is 0, initial investment will be equal to sum of present value of all future cash flows, correct? Now here I have written cost of capital and IRR. Next is your IRR method. आ जाओ जरा NPV के बाद, in NPV decision criteria, obviously higher NPV project will be selected, correct, and has to be positive NPV, correct? Then there is IRR. Now whenever I give you a stream of cash flow ऐसा, right, and I ask you what is the rate of return of this cash flow, right, I tell you to calculate NPV, then I say now at 10%, let's say you got 41.19 NPV. I want to know actually how much are you earning from this cash flow, right? So how will you find out? You have a formula in Excel, right? How is the formula? Also you can do by what method? There are two methods to calculate IRR. What are the two methods? One is the formula method, that is pen and paper method, that is interpolation method, and the other is the spreadsheet method. Other is what? Spreadsheet method, correct? Have a look. Spreadsheet is what? Your Excel may formula, correct? Now see, at 10%, have a look. At 10%, what is happening? The NPV is negative. At 5%, NPV is positive, right? So we can say this denotes that the project return is less than 10%, but more than 5%. That is between 5% and 10%, right? Which we have to find out. So by the interpolation method, we can find out the formula by, or formula of what? Basically your IRR. So IRR is nothing but your lower rate, correct? This is the IRR formula. Lower rate plus the NPV at lower rate divided by NPV at lower rate minus NPV at higher rate. Always remember, this should always be negative, then only you will get a better IRR, correct? Multiplied by higher rate into lower rate into one bracket, correct? Hence we found out here 5% pay and 10% pay, 8.05% is the IRR, right? Have a look. If you want, you can solve a lot of questions. There are note also written. So what is the note? Make sure that NPV at lower rate is positive, NPV at higher rate is negative, which gives you a better answer, correct? And the lesser the distance between lower and higher rate of IRR, the approximate answer. Because see, when it is always called, this is called as an approximate answer, formula method say. But when it is a spreadsheet method, it is called a appropriate. Spreadsheet is much more appropriate answer. And by formula, if you take out, It is basically a approximate answer. We want what the question asks. So section A, B may, if this question is asked, examiner will take a what view that you are using what? Tell me the formula method. And formula methods, or what if question may percentages are not given, always do with 10%. If 10% pay it comes positive, do 15 20. 15 pay it comes negative, then it is between 10 and 15. 15 pay it comes positive, then go to 20. That means between 50 and 20. If 20 is negative, 50 and 20 ke beech mein the IRR will come up. If it is 10 and it is negative, then go back 5%. 10 and 5 ke beech mein, right? 5 पे है तो 1 पे जाओ, correct? No option, right? Then it is between 1 and 5. That is how you should do it. Have a look, right? When NPV is equal to 0, right? At that rate, the rate at which NPV is equal to 0 is called as what? Your IRR rate, correct? Then spreadsheet method, right? Now see what happens. IRR is the actual return of the project. Now you have to bring this initial investment that you do, you have to bring it at certain cost of capital, okay, cost of bringing the money, correct? If your rate of return is more than the cost of capital, that means you are earning more than what you have bought the money for, correct? And the other way around, correct? If the IRR, right? IRR is what? Tell me. Higher, or IRR is lower, cost of capital is higher. In that case, what should happen? Bolo. In that case, positive or negative? IRR is lower, cost of capital is higher. It will be a negative NPV. Correct? Have a look. NPV here. Main table. So, cost of capital is greater than project return. Project is earning less, cost is higher, then the NPV will be negative. Cost of capital lower, IRR is higher. Correct? बराबर है. Have a look. Then IRR done. Now, whenever going ahead, you have what? A cash flow in year 0. Correct? It can be given as cash flow now, cash flow today, cash flow at the start of year 1 will also be considered as 0 year. Or it could also be what? Cash flow received in what? Advance in year 1. Cash flow in advance for year 1 means what? Start of year 1. Correct? End of year 1, start of year 2, or starting from year 1. So, first year end, whenever I say year 1 cash flow, it will always be at the end of first year. But if I say in year 1 in advance or at the start of year 1, it will be in 0 year. You have to read the wording very patiently, right? Naito you will lose the plot. Then IRR mein decision criteria is very simple. What is the decision criteria? Tell me. IRR pe 10% and 13%, you will choose a project which has higher IRR, right? Company has a target of 8% IRR, right? Then project IRR is 5% and project IRR is 15%. 5% wala will be rejected, 15% wala will be chosen, correct? Decision criteria. IRR, then you have what? IRR of conventional and non-conventional cash flow. This I think a lot of you might not even know, correct? So conventional cash flows means what? 0 year, negative, then positive, 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 positive. In this you will get only one IRR. You can check on Excel, right? Then there is a non-conventional cash flow. What are non-conventional cash flows? There are type 1 and type 2 cash flows. In non-conventional cash flows, there will be negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, ending with negative. So if it is starting with negative in 0 year, and every alternate year negative is there, in that case there is a what? Basically there will be an error and no IRR can be found out. But if there is a type 2 cash flow, non-conventional cash flow, negative, positive, 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 and ending with negative, in between positive and start and end negative, in that case you will have either you can have 0 IRR, different cash flows, you can have 1 IRR, you can have 2 IRRs. So there was a question that is asked in a lot of books, right? Have a look. Now, what happens if you change certain aspects whenever you are calculating IRR or NPV, right? This is something that you can have a look. If you change the cost of capital, if cost of capital goes up, your NPV will fall. If cost of capital goes down, your NPV rises, correct? If your initial investment goes up, correct, your NPV what? Will reduce. If your initial investment goes down, your NPV will increase, correct? IRR pe also cost of capital changing will not have any impact on IRR, but if you change the cash flows, initial investment or future cash flows, IRR will change. Initial investment goes up, IRR goes down. Initial investment goes down, IRR goes up. Future cash flows go up, positive future cash flows, right? Then IRR goes up. Then future cash flows goes down, IRR goes down. That is how it should work out. Annuity. Then we are coming to what? Present value of annuity and perpetuity. Here I will not go too much in detail. There are four basic formulas. Basic annuity starting from end of year one, annuity starting later, correct? Annuity starting now, and annuity IRR. Have a look. If this is the situation, there are four types, correct? Or four formulas relating to annuity. A lot of questions have been asked regarding this. So basic annuity is basically, what is the formula of basic annuity? Have a look. The sum of present value of an annuity. Basic annuity generally starts from first year and goes up to, annuity means what? It will be for certain same amount for certain number of years. So even cash flow, right? Even cash flow n years, what? Into the accounting factor, correct? Even cash flow tending to n years into the annuity factor, sorry. So annuity factor ka table is given in the exam. You have to ask for the discounting rate and how many years the cash flow will appear. So first you see what cash flow is appeared every year multiplied by the annuity factor, then ask for the discounting rate or the cost of capital from the question, and ask how many years the same cash flow will be repeated. But the cash flow will start from first year, correct? That is called as basic annuity. No book uses this basic annuity or any stuff. I use those wordings: basic annuity, annuity starting later, annuity starting now. Then when I say annuity starting later, means what is the formula? The even cash flow that repeats. So later means not from first year, but second, third, fourth, fifth year, correct? So what you do is, there is a flagging method, correct? So you plot the cash flows on a timeline or a 0 to whatever year, correct? And you say what? Even cash flow tending to n years multiplied by annuity factor discounting percentage last year of the annuity. Let's say annuity starts from third year, goes up to eighth year. So last year annuity factor with the discounting rate 8th year का लेके आने का minus, let's say third year से annuity start हो रहा है, तो 1 year before you have to come and place the flag. So 8th year minus second year का annuity you have to deduct, right? And then multiplied by the even cash flow that is there, right? Then you have annuity starting now. Annuity starting now is very simple. It is basic annuity plus 0 year cash flow. So basically it is what? Even cash flow tending to n years into 1 plus annuity factor discounting rate percentage n minus 1 years, right? And what? That is 3 years. So 4 years if your cash flow is repeating from 0 year, so reduce that 1 year. So 3 years it is normal annuity plus the 0 year ka same amount will be added, correct? Then you have perpetuity. What is perpetuity? Even cash flow is there, but is it only up to a certain number of years? It is tending to perpetuity. It could be either what? Basic perpetuity starting from year one, it could be perpetuity starting later, starting from second, third year, or it could be perpetuity starting now, that is from 0 year, or it could be perpetuity with growth, and then it is perpetuity plus IRR, right? Then this type of cash flow, this is okay, you can have a look. Basic perpetuity is very simple, right? First to fifth or to perpetuity, if you are getting something, then the formula is very simple. Sum of present value of perpetual cash flow starting from year one is even cash flow tending to perpetuity divided by discounting rate percentage. Then there is basic perpetuity starting later. What is basic perpetuity starting later? Have a look. Starting later may you go and wait 1 year before perpetuity starts. Pull the cash flow to 1 year before perpetuity starts and then bring it to 0 year. So UN cash flow divided by discounting rate percentage multiplied by the discounting factor of 1 year before perpetuity starts. Then if it is perpetuity starting now, then it is a normal perpetuity plus this year ka 0 year ka cash flow. So normal perpetuity that is there, and this even cash flow tending to perpetuity. Then ROC versus payback. So whenever in a question, let's say all four are given, ROC, payback, IRR and NPV. NPV is the best method, correct? And if they ask you all four given and they say simply that choose which project is to be chosen, then choose the project which has higher NPV because that is the best method that is there, correct? But if individually they ask, then there is an individual different choice, correct? Then IRR may you have what? See, at IRR, what happens? NPV is 0. So in that case, right, what happens? They can ask you anything. Okay? Wo part, you can, I think, all these advanced question. Advantages and disadvantages. All four advantages and disadvantages. ROC, क्या बोलते हैं? ROC, then your payback period, IRR and NPV have been asked n number of times in either section C theory question or have been asked n number of times in section A or B MCQs. अभी बोल रहा हूँ right now only telling you very clearly that all the advantages and disadvantages are very important from exam point of view. Correct? So ROC advantage easy to calculate. Consider full life of project. I think इसमें there is nothing I can do. Correct? You have to read it once. So disadvantages of ROC, basically profitability is used, time value of money not used, profit is easy to manipulate, and it is a relative measure. That is, it does not give a fixed answer. It gives an answer in percentage and does not tell you how much money you are earning. Same with payback period, uses cash flow and not profitability is the advantage. Easy to calculate, easy payback. Early payback period will mean you get your money back before technology is outdated. Disadvantage could be possibly time value of money is not used in payback period, but this problem has been solved by discounted payback period. Doesn't consider whole life of the project, as after the payback period all the cash flows are ignored. Even it what does not consider project profitability. It considers project which provide quick and early returns and ignore project profitability. Correct? 8. Project cutoff or target payback period is at disposal of management. Management decides what it will be, and it is a relative measure and not an absolute measure. NPV to fully advantage best method. Cash flow use, time value of money use, full life of the project, absolute measure, best method. Correct? Disadvantages. You need prior knowledge of what? You need to know what is cost of capital, discounting, everything. But if there are two projects which you want to compare and both their lives are different, then you cannot use the NPV method. Then you will have to use the EAB or equated annual benefit method. IRR में advantages में easy to calculate to non-finance manager, use cash flow and time value of money, considers full life of project. Disadvantages, it is a relative measure, obviously in percentage it does not, or if there are non-conventional cash flows, there will be differing answers and which may not be correct, right? And the second rate of IRR formula method is always assumed and hence it may lead to differing answers. SI. NPV versus IRR is a very important question. अभी mark कर लो. NPV versus IRR. Correct? Then you can look at all the question. Advantages and disadvantages. ठीक है. Perpetuity with growth is basically your even cash flow or first cash flow of perpetuity with growth divided by discounting rate minus the growth rate. Correct? Then this you can have a look. ये वाले जो all these questions are IRR plus there are questions that are there on that. ठीक है. अब चलो इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल में फुल फ्लेज एनपीवी, राइट? फुल फ्लेज एनपीवी में देर आर 7-8 थिंग्स दैट वी हैव टू डू. सो फर्स्ट थिंग इज इन्फ्लेशन. जनरली व्हाट हैपेंस इन इन्फ्लेशन? आ जाओ. जनरली इन्फ्लेशन इज द रिडक्शन ऑफ वैल्यू ऑफ मनी लीडिंग टू इंक्रीज इन व्हाट? एक्सपेंसेस और इनकम्स, राइट? आप देखोगे सेल्स, वेरिएबल कॉस्ट, फिक्स कॉस्ट जनरली हैव अ लॉट ऑफ implication of inflation, but your depreciation or certain things. Now full-fledged NPV ka you have a format, correct? Have a look how does the format fare out. This format you have to learn for exam. Very important format. So this is how many Excel sheets we have made. This is the main class ka sheets. ठीक है. हाँ, full-fledged NPV format. Have a look. Right? What is the format? Sales minus variable cost gives you contribution. Contribution minus fixed cost and other marketing cost and other fixed cost gives you net operating cash flow. From the net operating cash flow before tax, you deduct a corporation tax first. Then it could be paid in the same year, or it could be paid in arrears or next year. Then initial investment, scrap value, TS on TAD. Right? But now this time, this kind of format is also becoming very famous. What is this format? Have a look. You do what? Sales minus variable cost minus fixed cost. You get net operating cash flow before tax. Then you deduct tax, add the tax shield on tax allowable depreciation. Correct? You get net operating cash flow after tax, and then initial investment, scrap value, and working capital investment. These are also what? Sure. Right? What is NPV and IRR relation? There is no relation as such. रिलेशन का क्वेश्चन पूछा है? रिलेशन पूछा होता तो क्या चाहिए था? इट इज एनपीवी वर्सेस आईआरआर दैट इज आस्क्ड। दोनों को कंपेयर करना है, राइट? बाद में एंड में, ठीक है। चलो आ जाओ। Then there is an inflation question. So inflation, first thing you have to learn this format. 100 nahi 200% you will have to learn. Correct. Small nuances where people go wrong is, first you have to decide how the currency would fare out. Whether it would be what, dollars, thousand, millions, whatever it is. Correct. And then year, always draw 1 year extra. Let's say 4 year है तो 1 year extra क्यों draw करना? Because you may have tax that might be paid in arrears. Correct. Then let's go ahead. Inflation का major impact would be on sales, variable cost, fixed cost and other cost. Other than that, I don't think inflation has an impact on tax, because tax की वजह से inflation, tax का rate change नहीं होगा. Maybe the cash flows change because of the inflation, right? So generally sales, variable cost, fixed cost पे you have what? Implication of tax, right? Have a look. And only up to net operating cash flow before tax, right? Scrap value is generally inflation adjusted and will not have any implication. Initial investment तो आज ही करना है, तो today's value is going to be today's value only. Inflation नहीं आता है. Working capital investment also is based on sales or something, correct? And hence it will have inflation already included. बराबर है क्या? Have a look. Right. Then methods of inflation, there are two methods: single rate inflation method and multiple rate inflation method. Single rate inflation method is very simple. The cash flow and the discounting rate both grow by the same inflation rate, right? And you can toggle from real to nominal, nominal to real. From real to nominal, if you have to go, you have to do what? Real cash flow into 1 plus inflation raised to n will give you nominal cash flow. From nominal to real, if you have to come, correct, what you will do, or there is, if you want to go from real discounting rate to nominal discounting rate, then use the Fisher effect. Fisher effect says 1 plus real rate into 1 plus inflation rate is equal to 1 plus nominal rate, correct? The real discounted, real cash flow will always be discounted with real rate, and nominal will always be discounted by nominal rate. And if there is a single rate of inflation, real NPV will be equal to nominal NPV, correct? Have a look. Then deflation plus single rate method is what? When you go from nominal to real, you divide by the inflation factor, or 1 plus inflation raised to n से divide होगा, right? This is also Fisher effect. Nominal discounting rate, you just rearrange the formula. 1 plus real rate into 1 plus inflation rate is equal to 1 plus nominal rate. You just rearrange the formula. ठीक है क्या? देख लो. Then you have multiple rate inflation method or specific inflation rate method, where सेल्स के लिए अलग, वेरिएबल कॉस्ट के लिए डिफरेंट, फिक्स कॉस्ट के लिए डिफरेंट, अदर कॉस्ट के लिए डिफरेंट, डिस्काउंटिंग रेट के लिए डिफरेंट फॉर्मूलेज आर गिवन, करेक्ट? देन you have what? Tell me. Your real cash flow going, or 1 plus the specific inflation rate raised to n give you nominal cash flow, correct? Real discounting rate to nominal you go by Fisher effect. 1 plus real rate into 1 plus inflation rate minus 1. Deflation plus specific rate method. Deflation plus specific में क्या होता है? The old real cash flows, right? Old real cash flows will go to nominal cash flows, but nominal cash flows, when they go back, or when you have to what, basically discount them, you discount them by the general inflation. Because general inflation, see, for sales, variable cost, fixed cost, other cost, specific inflation will be given. The general inflation rate generally is related with your discounting rate, correct? So general inflation rate to be used for discounting rate. Sales, variable cost, fixed cost, other cost should use the rate of what? Tell me. The specific cash flow का rate that is given. Sales का sales inflation, variable cost का variable inflation rate, and fixed cost का fixed cost inflation rate, and other cost का other cost inflation rate. Have a look, right? Then here there is a question, Pink's company, which was asked here. Pink's company, you can mark specific inflation में, when you have to go from nominal to real NPV. Pink's company. So whenever there is a small part of Pink's company, I must have written a note, right? Then inflation का impact. आ जाओ. How will the inflation apply? Correct. Discounted payback is there going ahead, ma'am, right? Have a look. Going ahead, I have taken somewhere in cost of capital, I have taken, or at the end, I have taken discounted cash flows, right? Types of inflation question: 0-year value or current year value given, cash flow in current terms given, right? Cash flow in 0-year terms given, and specific inflation rate is given. Inflation applies from year 1 and onwards. I have done in this Excel different types of question, correct? Multiple inflation type 1 question, multiple inflation type 2 question, expected selling price of year 1 given and specific inflation rate given, then inflation applies from year 2. So if they say selling price expected for year 1 is this and inflation applies on this, so inflation will be applied from year 2. Expected selling price of all years given, right? That is already inflated. Read the question always, that whether the selling price is already inflated. All selling price and cost given in current terms for all years plus inflation given. Apply inflation from year 1. So all selling price, everything given in current terms, 0-year terms or something like that, inflation from first year. But if they are given in first year terms, inflation from second year. याद रखो, this also plays a very big part, correct? Corporation taxes. Corporation taxes are what? Tell me. Basically, your timing of corporation tax, treatment of losses and tax holiday given by country. ये अभी तक AFM से I have brought up. AFM में tax holiday का concept has come up, right? So examiner has what? A very bad habit of picking up questions from AFM and putting it in FM, correct? Timing of corporation tax तो easy है. It could be either tax could be paid in the same year or could be paid in arrears, right? Then if there are losses, correct? If there are treatment of losses, right? Two things: you can carry forward the loss indefinitely. Then you could do what? Let's say there is a loss in a year. You carry forward the loss. I must have done a question here on the losses. Have a look. So if there is a loss, let's say year, first year mein there is a loss and it is allowed to carry forward the loss. So what you'll do, you do 65,000, you'll carry forward ahead, and in the next year from the net operating cash flow you will deduct the loss, and on the 36,000 net you will pay tax. So no tax in the year in which loss occurs. But there is another thing where it says that existing profits of business can be used to set off losses of new project, right? In that case, if it is specifically given treatment of loss T2, in that case, if there is a loss in a year, let's say 65,000 year, you will have a tax shield and not a tax payment, because you have an existing business that has profit. This loss will reduce the profit of that business, correct? And hence 65,000 I am not carrying forward to next year. I am taking tax shield on that. Have a look. This loss will create what? A tax savings when added with the profit of existing business, and hence gives us tax savings on loss of new business against the tax payment, correct? Then going ahead, you have the relevant cash flow what table, right? And the irrelevant cash flows. Have a look. Future cash flows, cash based expenses, opportunity costs, correct? Right? The relevant cash flow, irrelevant cash flow, there are certain MCQs, you can have a look. I think those are technical MCQs. I have solved most of them in class, correct? So future cash flow, cash based expenses, opportunity cost, cash flow that occurs when project is carried out. Irrelevant cash flow is basically non-cash expenditure, depreciation, amortization, apportionment, all those things. Allocated cost, example, depreciation costs which are allocated. Historic or sunk cost, etc. that are there, purchase price of machine and all that. Then there is committed cost. So when you are doing what? Your full-fledged NPV question, you should focus more, right? That all the cash flows that are there are relevant cash flows. If there are any irrelevant cash flows, correct, you should completely ignore them, right? Committed cost, example, factory rent, fixed component of electricity bill, unavoidable cost. The most important could be interest cost are irrelevant, because in what? Tell me. NPV, you are doing discounting by the interest rate, correct? Then, aaja, tax shield, TS on TAD. You have 2 or 3 methods of depreciation. What are the 3 methods of depreciation? Aaja, WDV, 3 or 4 methods are there. WDV or reducing balance method, SLM, right? SLM method. Then you have SLM plus fixed percentage. This has not yet been asked in FM, right? AFM में this question has been asked repeatedly. अभी AFM में they don't ask SLM or WDV. They ask SLM plus fixed percentage on initial investment only. So high time that you might see this question in your exam. And then 100% depreciation available immediately. Correct? WDV or reducing balance method, right? So here I have done. हाँ, एक मिनट, ये टैक्स हॉलिडे रहेगा ना. टैक्स हॉलिडे बेसिकली इज व्हाट, यू विल नॉट पे टैक्स ऑन व्हाट certain profits, correct, and tax holidays will be there. That means for first 2 years, even if you have profits, tax will not be paid because your company has been given a tax holiday by the government. ठीक है, चलो come back to methods. WDV. WDV method में basically what is that? The most important thing in WDV would be basically the last year में balancing charge या balancing allowance. But before going into that, every year whatever is the opening balance on that, you will calculate depreciation. Correct? But when it comes to SLM, SLM would be your initial investment minus scrap value divided by useful life will be your depreciation every year. The amount will be same every year, right? That is there. Then coming to the SLM plus fixed percentage. So what the question will be, depreciation method, SLM at 20% fixed on the initial investment. Your depreciation will be same every year, correct? But you won't find the depreciation amount doing initial investment minus scrap value by useful life. You will use this 20% directly every year on the initial investment of 20,000. So this 4,000 is also what? Ye 20,000 ka 20%. That is how it is. Now coming to sale of asset. Okay? Sale of asset. Yeah, TS on TD timing same year. If tax is paid in same year, your TS on TD also same year. If tax is paying in next year, TS on TD also next year. Correct? Then coming to the TS on TD balancing charge. Now in the last year, correct? In all three methods, in the last year when you sell the asset, right? If scrap value or if opening balance of last year of project is greater than the scrap value of project, loss on sale of asset, profit will go down. There will be a balancing allowance. You will be having tax savings. On allowances you have tax savings, but if it is balancing charge, that is opening balance is low and scrap value is high, so in that case there will be a profit on sale of asset. Profit will increase because of this and balancing charge will occur. If balancing charge and profit increase, you will have to do extra payment on what, your TS on TAD of last year. Correct? Have a look. Then there is something called as what, 100% allowed immediately. First year में only what will happen? Full depreciation allowed to you. Correct? Have a look. 100% depreciation allowed. Right? That is how it is. Then चलो आगे, we did I think Melplash company. Melplash company में NPV, IRR, payback period, ROC. One of the important questions from your book. Then sales, variable cost, fixed cost. 3 or 4 types of question has come up. You generally have what, sales of what, 3 selling price given, probability attached to it. So you find expected selling price and always use NPV accordingly. Sales, variable cost and fixed cost range given, 0 to 100 if the sale is there, selling price will be this. 100 to 200 if it is there, selling price is this. Variable cost के लिए also range given. Sales, variable cost and fixed cost. Fixed cost in constant when sale is in falling trend. बराबर है क्या? Plus fixed cost per unit is given. That is there. Charming बोल के question है. So what happens? Fixed cost per unit is given. It will be constant from year 1 till the, even if, so there is a question called as charming which has a very high sales in the first year and the sales falls later on. In this case, fixed cost per unit given. So 2 things should happen. Your sales is in a falling trend and fixed cost per unit given. If that is the situation in the question, fixed cost per unit is given, then in that case you will have to take fixed cost constant. First year का ही fixed cost constant, because nowhere fixed cost can fall over the time. Correct? Fixed cost will generally increase only, right? Always take the relevant sales, that is new machine capacity, and don't consider existing capacity. Production capacity versus demand, sale is always lower of the two. Abhi, see, first you have to say that new machine, you are going to take a decision for the new machine and not for the existing machine. So you should take sales only of the new machine. Then if there is a production or demand, right? Production capacity is 10,000 but demand is 20,000. If capacity is only 10,000, you can only fulfill 10,000. So whichever is lower will be taken as sales. So production capacity versus demand, always sales is always lower of the two. Don't get confused there. ठीक है? Then there is a question called Degnis company. ठीक है, you can have 5 year का या 4 year का project and the project life to be 10 years, right? So that also will work out. उसमें you take depreciation later on. फिर working capital 4 or 5 type of questions, right, are there in working capital. Working capital as a percentage of sale, working capital as a percentage of sale plus advance question. I have taken a lot of different types of question here. As a percentage of sale means what? You have given sales and working capital is what? Calculated. So you do sales and then working capital balance will be nothing but whatever percentage. First year ka. So what happens? Whatever is required during first year is invested in 0 year. Whatever is required during second year is invested at the end of first year. Third year, second year can pay. During fourth year, third year ke what? Start pay. Right? Oh, sorry, fourth year ke start pay or third year ke end pay. It will be invested, right? So only additional amount is to be invested every year. So working capital investment, so balance you calculate as a percentage, you calculate balance of every year, right? Then slowly what you do, you find a difference. So see, 7,500 I invested because this is year on year sales. Once invested, it will churn out a sale of 50,000, correct? Next year you want to do 80,000. So 12,000 balance is required, but you've already invested 7,500. So additional 4,500 to be invested. Here now only 9,000 required. You have already invested 12,000. Get back 3,000. Like that, it is to be done. Have a look. Working capital as a percentage of sale. Working capital as a percentage of sale is what? Sometimes what they will do is first year they will give you 20% of sales, and from second year to last year they will give you what? 15%. So generally this is AFM type question. AFM mein this question is asked n number of times. N number. I cannot even tell you how many times in AFM this has been asked. Don't be surprised if it is used what? Tell me. Here in FM. Okay. So the balance that is accepted, opening closing balance you will have to calculate and accordingly solve the question. So what happens? Year 0 year you invest what? 20% of the sales. Then you invest what? 15% of the sale additional. Here, have a look. Additional every year you will do 15%. That is how things work out at a what? Now see, at the end there is a option whether it is to be repaid at the end. If nothing said, the basic assumption is that it is repaid back at the end. Have a look. Repaid back at the end of the project, default method. If nothing mentioned in question, it is repaid back. Not repaid back at end of project, that means it has to be specifically mentioned in question. That don't repay the working capital investment at the end, right? Then you have working capital plus inflation rate. Working capital of first investment of first year given, and they will say it will increase by the inflation rate. So increase the working capital investment. Whatever additional investment you're doing, that should be your working capital. And in the end, whatever you have what invested, get back your money. Correct? If said don't get back your money, keep that money as is. Don't get any money back. Right? Here one more at the start plus no increment. Sometimes they give you that working capital is invested today and at the end that same amount will be returned. बराबर है क्या? And then directly in your incremental working capital given, you just have to increase or use the same amount at time. Directly working capital investment is also given. So all the types you can have a look. Certain times the question is asked to find present value of tax shield on TAD. You must have seen this in a lot of books, a lot of questions. You can do that. Investment appraisal under uncertainty is your next part, where probably you have sensitivity analysis and probability analysis as your what? Tell me. Major practical part. Risk versus uncertainty and simulation are theory part. Sensitivity analysis also has a theory. Correct? Have a look. Risk versus uncertainty, correct? You have what? Three points. Risk is what? Risk is a situation where you have various possible outcomes available and you can attach probabilities to the same and find the expected value. Mathematical models can be used to quantify the risk. Risk can be quantified, correct? But probability or uncertainty is a situation where you have various possible outcomes, but you cannot attach probability to the same and cannot get expected values. No mathematical model can be used to qualify or to quantify uncertainties. You cannot quantify uncertainties at all, correct? Have a look. Then risk versus uncertainty. Sensitivity is what? The percentage measure of impact of a present value of a single variable. So how do you calculate sensitivity? आ जाओ जरा. Pink's company sensitivity. So when I say sensitivity of selling price, correct? What you do? You take the sales from here, correct? Then find the present value of the sales, correct? And by reducing the present value of the sales, how much NPV will fall? You will have to do that and find the percentage of fall that is there. So NPV divided by the present value of after tax, what? Cash flow of a single variable, selling price, variable cost, fixed cost, initial investment, right? That is how it is. So sensitivity analysis may always remember, if a short note is asked, you have to write what is it is a percentage measure of impact of the present value of a single variable. Example like sales, variable cost, fixed cost, or initial investment, correct? And you have to do what? Initial investment individually. You cannot do all together. All together is simulation. Individually, how much it is falling, right? Which will lead to NPV to go to zero. So NPV divided by the present value of after tax cash flow of a single variable, right? Contribution. इसमें I think sensitivity percentage of contribution पूछना है तो they will say sensitivity of what? Sales volume, right? That is how it is. Have a look. And sensitivity of discounting rate is basically your IRR minus discounting rate divided by discounting rate. The variable with the lowest sensitivity percentage is the most sensitive factor. ये पूरा एक short note also comes on sensitivity analysis. I don't know why this time sensitivity पे short note आने का chance है. Then there is simulation. Simulation mark very important, has been asked too many times in exam as a short note. So simulation is nothing but in sensitivity analysis you take what? Impact of one variable changing on the NPV, correct? But when multiple variable change, correct, and multiple variables have an impact on the NPV, right, and you can find different possible outcomes, right, it is difficult to calculate, and hence computer aided techniques are used for calculated simulation problems. So simulation is what? Multiple variables changing at multiple NPVs and what impact it will have on the NPV, that will be there, right? Then steps for carrying out simulation. First, identify the variable, identify or define the variables, define or specify the relationship between the variable, right? Then simulate the environment, correct? Once environment is simulated, provide the input of change in different variables and get the possible NPV outcomes. Final result of the simulation, correct? Final result of the simulation will give you various possible outcomes, attach probability to them, and get an expected value. If asked for 2 marks, write this much only. If asked for 6 marks or 4 or 6 marks, write full. That is how simulation works out. ठीक है, आ जाओ. Tax impact on sensitivity analysis means every what? Tell me. Impact before in the net operating cash flow variable cost. You can have a look at it. Tax impact is what you will on sales. What happens? You pay tax on variable cost. You save tax. That is to be. You have to take what? Every variable after tax. I think we are done quite in detail in class. No, Pranav is there. Kya? We are done. I think Ashish, we are done. Or very much into detail in the class.
Yes, sir.
Right? So you have to take present value after tax, right? So what you do, sales, whatever is inflow, us pe you pay tax. So sales variable cost, fixed cost pay generally what tax impact will come, right? Because of which tax changes, that impact will only come, correct? Then coming to simulation के बाद probability, basic probability, joint probability. Basic probability is what? Tell me. Your expected NPV, correct? Of the project plus the NPV plus probability given. So type 1 question ऐसा कुछ होता है, right? This type of question they will give you what? Tell me. NPV in market condition, correct? Good, better, best, and project. And what will be the NPV? You have to find expected NPV of each project. Wherever the highest NPV, expected NPV is there you will what? Choose that project, correct? Then there is 1 year cash flow given and probability given, right? So what you have to do, find the expected cash flow, discount it, right? And then compare it with initial investment, get your NPV. Then discounted cash flow directly given, probability given, then discounted cash flow into probability, right? Directly initial investment, but scrap value you will have to discount. So cash flow might be discounted, but scrap value you will have to discount. Then more than 1 year, correct? What happens? An annuity is given. That same cash flow will be repeated again and again. This is the same cash flow for 4 years will be repeated, correct? तो ऐसा करके you can find expected cash flow, get an annuity table made out of it, and discount the cash flows, get the NPV, correct? Then discounted cash flow plus annuity, something that I don't think too much important, right? Just a fun game in the class, correct? But if there are multiple years cash flow given, then find expected cash flow of each year, right? Put it up in the table, right? And find the NPV, right? Then there could be what? Discounted cash flow plus 2 years ka discounted cash flow, probability given. Have a look. Cash flow, probability. Cash flow, probability. Correct? So you find expected discounted cash flow of each year, get the scrap value ka present value, and add this discounted cash flow here, get the NPV. Then more than 1 year and joint probability table given. Joint probability table mein basically what you have to do? Now see, when there is a 3 by 3 matrix in a joint probability table, what you will do? 3 by 3 matrix, 9 possible outcomes will be there. That means this year 1 cash flow 200,000 with 250, 300, 350, 250 with 250, 300, 350, 300 with 250, 300 and 350. Like this 9 outcomes will be there. We have one question done here. Cooper or Copper Company, whatever, right? It was a 3 by 3 matrix that was given. Have a look. 3 years. So if a 2 by 3 matrix is given, so 2 into 3, 6 outcomes will be there. 3 by 3 matrix means 9 outcomes will be there, right? Then joint probability of that possible outcome and getting NPV at that possible or that probable outcome is something that you have to look. So I calculate NPV at each possible outcome. And how do I get joint probability? This first year ka 1000 ka probability and second year ka 2000 ka probability I will multiply together and I will get joint probability of the same. We have made a very good table, right? The answer here is given, which I have given, is quite straightforward. If you look at the question, try to figure it out. You will be able to easily calculate it. Correct? Have a look. They could probably ask you what? Comment. Have a look. 1 minute. But before going ahead, here they could ask you what? How many outcomes do have negative NPV, right? And what is the probability, joint probability of that, right? This could be asked in the question. Or if there is a 0 NPV, what could be the probability of the 0 NPV? All this could be asked. Now see, there is a basic note that is given, correct? That whenever in a question, NPV question, if you use sales, variable cost, fixed cost, ऐसा सब कुछ as expected values, that is percentage use करके you find the expected values. In that case, what will happen? Tell me. In that case, you have to write a small note that it is an expected answer. We had done one question in EAC. EAC में किया था, right? Now just we'll go into that, finish that chapter, and then take a break. उसके बाद I'll give you important question. Today, you should solve those section C questions for sure, correct? And then probably you could go to section B and A. Asset replacement decision में there are two or three things. A capital rationing, asset replacement decision, and discounted payback period. Correct? तो आ जाओ जरा. Lease versus borrow and buy. Lease versus borrow में relevant cash flows of lease and relevant cash flows of borrow. Lease versus borrow. आ जाओ जरा. See, lessor and lessee has a relationship, right? So lessor and lessee have a relationship where lessor is owner of the asset and lessee is one who takes the lease premium or pays the lease premium and has a tax shield on the lease premium, and he has the responsibility of keeping the asset in good shape. Lessor has all what purchase price, is the owner, he gets the depreciation, he gets the tax shield on depreciation, maintenance generally is done by lessor. If nothing given in question, maintenance cost is borne by lessor. If specifically given that is given by lessee, then फिर lessee. Then there is a CO2 emission test, then tax shield on CO2 emission test, right? एक टेस्ट का जो चार्ज आप पे करेंगे, you will have to pay tax on it, correct? Or you will have tax उस पे सेव होगा because it's a expense. Tax on asset usage, right? That is there, and tax shield on tax on asset usage. Default what? Tell me. Not applicable. ये क्या है? Right? If there is any tax that you pay on the asset usage, correct? It is an expense that is allowed. But उसके ऊपर tax shield मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा? Question has to clarify. By default, you cannot take tax. But if there is a CO2 emission test, right? CO2 emission test is in UK tax. If you see, it is an allowable expense, and on that tax is saved. So this TS on TAD or TS on CO2 emission is a default that is there. Have a look. Correct? Then going ahead, lease versus borrow. In lease, what are the cash flows? And in borrow and buy, what are the cash flows? In lease, very simple. You have lease premium, tax shield on lease premium. These two have never been asked. If there is any savings in cost, correct? अरे रोड टैक्स ही राजा ये रहता ना, यूजेज वाला. Tax on asset usage is road tax only, correct? So savings in cost, tax paid on savings in cost, correct? Default. कोई savings in cost हुआ because of the lease, but generally नहीं होता है lease में. These two cash flows have never occurred in lease. But if borrow and buy, correct? In borrow and buy, purchase price is there. You have TS on TAD. Depreciation on machine is not a cash flow. It's an irrelevant cash flow. Maintenance cost, correct? And TS on maintenance cost, correct? CO2 emission test. Then TS on CO2 emission test. Tax on asset usage, that is there. And TS on tax usage asset. देखो, tax on asset usage expense, right? You have to look for tax on asset usage if there is tax shield available on that. Scrap value of the machine, savings in cost, and tax paid on savings in cost. If the question specified that maintenance cost will be borne by the lessee, then you have to consider it as a relevant cash flow. Basic क्या है? Lessor will do the maintenance, correct? Then once you're done all the cash flows you list for borrow and buy and lease, then you have to discount both the cash flows. Discount both the cash flows by cost of borrowing, because see, you borrow and buy. Whenever you buy, you will borrow and buy, correct? And hence you use that cash flow to discount what? Not only the borrow and buy option, but the lease option, because you are what? Comparing both the option, right? Then lease versus buy में क्या है? If cash flows are tax adjusted or after tax, right? सारे tax का impact is given, then use cost of debt after tax, right? Or after tax cost of borrowing, correct? Or after tax cost of debt भी बोला तो कोई problem नहीं. If cash flow are not adjusted or taxation is ignored, then use before tax cost of debt. How to go from before tax to after tax, I have taken a example, right? Then going ahead, KD1 minus, then coming to EAC. Now see, whenever you want to compare two replacement cycles, that means there is a decision at hand that, sir, there is a truck and my business is renting out trucks. I want to, what? Every 2 years or 3 years, should I replace my truck? Every 2 years, every 3 years, every 4 years, should I replace the truck? Now see, two projects which have variable life cannot be compared. Variable as in different lives, cannot be compared with each other. So what you do? You find the present value of these projects, correct? And then divided by the annuity factor, correct? Discounting percentage comma n years, and try to find the equivalent annual cost, right? So the formula is very simple, correct? Take all the cash flows of EAC. The cash flows are very similar to buy and borrow cash flows, correct? Right? But here the discounting rate that you use in EAC will be a cost of capital and not cost of borrowing. So you take 2 year ka, if you run the machine for 2 years, what will be the cash flow? If you use the machine for 3 years, what will be the cash flow? उसका present value निकालो using the discounting rate. Discounting rate that you should use is cost of capital rate. दोनों का क्या करो? Discounting करो, correct? And then get the NPV of replacing the asset in 2 years, NPV of replacing the asset in 3 years. दोनों हो गया, correct? Then divided by the annuity factor, 2 year, 3 year, both are cost, correct? Then what you can do? Tell me. वैसा. And then you use that annuity factor, find the equivalent annual cost, whichever is the lower will be your equivalent annual cost. देख लो जरा. PV of today converted into yearly annual cost. It is assumed that this will every year, 4 year, every 3 year, 4 year, every 2 year. What is happening? Bolo. Things are happening. Then there is maintenance cost. If nothing mentioned, right? Maintenance cost in last year before sale, that is default method. Specifically, there are chances that ये maintenance cost होता है ना, this is not done before sale. Generally ऐसा होता है क्वेश्चन में, it is given. You must have done a, if you have practice questions, तो आप देख सकते हो उसमें दिया हुआ है specifically mentioned that in last year maintenance cost will not be considered, then don't consider the same. But if it is said every year maintenance cost कुछ XYZ होगा, तो उसको लास्ट ईयर में भी आप कंसिडर करेंगे. बिफोर सेल यू डू द मेंटेनेंस एंड देन सेल द कार और मशीन. करेक्ट. Discounting rate is the WACC rate or and not cost of borrowing or cost of capital of the company. Taxation will have an impact, but read question. एक बार एक एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन दिया था EAC का, राइट, सब कुछ हो गया और एंड में टैक्स रेट भी दिया था इन द क्वेश्चन, एंड एट द एंड दे सेड इग्नोर टैक्सेशन. सब कुछ बोल दिया, फिर बोल दिया इग्नोर टैक्सेशन. इन दैट केस यू विल यूज WACC रेट आल्सो बिफोर टैक्स बिकॉज ऑल द कैश फ्लोज आर बिफोर टैक्स. करेक्ट. देन रिलेवेंट कैश फ्लो देख लो, यू कुड रीड द लिस्ट रिलेवेंट कैश फ्लो का, राइट. देन EAB, हाँ, व्हेन देयर आर टू प्रोजेक्ट्स व्हिच हैव डिफरिंग लाइफ, सेम लॉजिक यूज करो. NPV निकालो दो प्रोजेक्ट का जैसा वहां निकाला था एंड डिवाइड बाय द एन्युटी फैक्टर एंड गेट व्हाट, एवरी ईयर का EAB. वेर एवर दो प्रोजेक्ट है, अब रिप्लेसमेंट नहीं है, दो प्रोजेक्ट है, राइट, एक 4 साल का एक 5 साल का, टू कंपेयर बोथ, ठीक है. फाइंड द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू दैट इज NPV ऑफ बोथ द प्रोजेक्ट, डिवाइड बाय द एन्युटी फैक्टर, गेट द EAB दैट इज इक्विवेलेंट एनुअल बेनिफिट. Wherever equivalent annual benefit is higher, EAB का formula NPV of project for n years divided by annuity factor discounting rate percentage n years. Correct. Then last topic of investment appraisal is capital rationing. Capital rationing theory question, capital rationing का types of capital rationing. मेरा मानना है एग्जाम में आता एक्सपेक्टेड क्वेश्चन बोल के लिख लो. सिमुलेशन क्या है, कैपिटल रैशनिंग, NPV वर्सेस IRR. फिर इन्फ्लेशन के टू मेथड्स ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन, राइट, आर ऑल इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस फॉर द एग्जाम. सेंसिटिविटी एनालिसिस सेक्शन C थियोरी में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, has been asked so many times I cannot even tell you. Correct. Capital rationing is basically a situation where you have multiple positive NPV projects but you don't have enough capital to invest in all the projects. That is, capital is limited or there is capital constraint. कैपिटल रैशनिंग बहुत सिंपल स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड है. थियोरी क्या बोलता है, टाइप्स ऑफ कैपिटल रैशनिंग, टू टाइप्स, हार्ड कैपिटल रैशनिंग, सॉफ्ट कैपिटल रैशनिंग. हार्ड कैपिटल इज बेसिकली एक्सटर्नल कैपिटल रैशनिंग. सॉफ्ट कैपिटल रैशनिंग इज आल्सो कॉल्ड एज इंटरनल कैपिटल रैशनिंग. एक्सटर्नल कैपिटल रैशनिंग में whenever you go outside, see, you have multiple NPV projects but you do not have the money and you go to ask for money from outside and no one gives you money. So what are the reasons for what, tell me. Hard capital rationing, you have low credit ratings. If you have low credit rating, no one will give you loan. You don't have security for loan or shortage of security for loan. Economic factor like recession, if there is a recession in the market, then there will be a problem. Industry-wide limiting of funds means what? The whole industry, or there is what? Limiting of fund problem. That means for your industry specifically, there is restriction that is put on borrowing and you have a poor repayment history. Correct. And make banks what? Not lend to company. But if there is soft capital rationing, company itself imposes the capital or reduces the capital internally. Department, into departments, what? Less capital is given so that it encourages internal competition. Risk attitude of director, right, is on the lower risk option and hence they don't want to what? Give too much capital. Poor management skills to handle. You have the money, you do everything but you do not have the management power or management skill to handle variety of projects. New equity for investment may lead to dilution of control. आपको लगता है if you bring in new capital, right, it will lead to dilution of control of existing shareholder. And desire of getting maximum return from available capital. Desire of getting what? Maximum returns from available capital. Have a look. Correct. Then let's go ahead. The practical part. 4 types of questions can be asked. Where all projects are divisible plus independent. Where all projects are indivisible plus independent. Then all projects are divisible. Some are mutually exclusive, some are independent. All projects are indivisible. Some projects are mutually exclusive and remaining are independent. Divisible project means project can be run partially or partly. Indivisible project means you have to run the full project 100%. right? Independent project means what? Projects are not related to each other and can be run independently. Mutually exclusive project means what? These projects which generally have similar resources hence cannot be run together. बराबर है क्या? Now coming to all projects are divisible plus independent. Simple. Profitability index निकालो. PI का formula बहुत simple है. Profitability index is nothing but NPV divided by the initial investment. Correct? Then what you do? Rank the projects. Correct? As per PI, and then maximum allocation to highest ranked projects, keeping in mind the capital constraint, right? When it is what? Indivisible plus independent, all are independent and all are indivisible. In that case, you cannot use PI, you have to make groups of project keeping in mind the capital constraint, correct? And choose the group of project having max NPV at minimum initial investment. Then coming to all projects are divisible, some are mutually exclusive, remaining are independent. There was a section C question, Crockett Company on this. You calculate profitability index, rank the projects, right? Maximum allocation to higher rank projects, keeping in mind mutually. So once, let's say project A and project C are mutually exclusive. If you choose project A, you cannot choose project C. If you choose project C, you cannot choose project A. These are called as mutually exclusive projects. So if the ranking of project A is higher, choose project A. Ranking of project C is higher, choose project C. But once you choose project A, you cannot choose project C. If you choose project C, you cannot choose project A, right? So keeping in mind what? Mutually exclusive projects are not chosen together, and keeping in mind the capital constraint. Make groups of project when it is what? All projects are individual, some are mutually exclusive and remaining are independent, correct? Make groups of projects keeping in mind the capital constraint and mutual exclusive project. Choose the group of projects having maximum NPV at minimum investment level, correct? If there is a tie in NPV, दो ऑप्शन में एनपीवी सेम है तो गो विद द प्रोजेक्ट विद लोअर इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट, दो इसमें इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट में टाई है तो गो विद द प्रोजेक्ट विद हायर एनपीवी, करेक्ट? You can look at, I have solved I think a lot of questions on this. With this I think the whole investment appraisal and FM function part is done. Take a break 15 minutes, come back, I'll give you important questions to do today, right? And one or two question I will discuss. Okay, 3:38 हुआ है, come back by 3:55 p.m. We will continue then. चलो, एवरीबॉडी क्विकली कम बैक। इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन लिखा देता हूँ, आ जाओ। आ जाओ। चलेगा, बोलो। एवरीबॉडी बैक।
यस सर।
चलो लिख लो, व्हाट ऑल क्वेश्चंस आर इम्पोर्टेंट। आ जाओ। सबसे पहला इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है ओके एम कंपनी, सेक्शन सी क्वेश्चन था। ओके एम कंपनी, ओके एम कंपनी, डुओ कंपनी। डुओ कंपनी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। डुओ कंपनी में देर इज वन व्हाट इंपॉर्टेंट एडजस्टमेंट, आपने वो देखना ही चाहिए। ठीक है। फिर कॉपर कंपनी, एक पिंक्स कंपनी। डुओ कंपनी में प्रोबब्ली सेल्स कैलकुलेशन इंपॉर्टेंट है। ठीक। कॉपर कंपनी में जॉइंट प्रोबेबिलिटी है बस। पिंक्स कंपनी डिफ्लेशन इंपॉर्टेंट है। ठीक है। क्रॉकेट कंपनी इंपॉर्टेंट है। क्रॉकेट कंपनी जिसमें कैपिटल रैशनिंग है। कब्रेरास अच्छा है, कब्रेरास। यानी ये क्वेश्चन तो मिनिमम आपको सॉल्व करने ही पड़ते। हॉकर, मेलप्लैश, ये बार आया है क्लोवर, फुलोरो, गॉल। गॉल तो इजी था वैसे भी। और ईलान। इतने तो क्वेश्चन आपको मिनिमम सॉल्व करने पड़ते हैं। सारे टाइप के इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल के क्वेश्चंस हो जाते हैं। ठीक है।
सर,
हाँ।
एक डाउट था।
हाँ।
ये वर्किंग कैपिटल में क्वेश्चन है नेसूट देखो।
हाँ।
उसमें वी हैव टू फाइंड टू थिंग्स, लाइक एक तो ये दिया था हम लोग ने। हाँ, एक वी हैड टू फाइंड द टोटल एग्जिस्टिंग और न्यू सिस्टम, वो फाइनेंस वाला रिसीवेबल का
हम्म।
था। एंड
हम्म।
उसमें एक फॉलोइंग पार्टीज ऑफ इकोनॉमिक ऑर्डर क्वांटिटी।
हम्म।
तो ईओक्यू वाले में फाइनेंस कॉस्ट जो उन लोग ने बॉटम में दिया था।
अलग से लेते हो?
नहीं, वो तो समझा मुझे। बट जो
हाँ।
ईओक्यू जब कंप्यूट करेंगे ना, उसमें
मैं
देखो
नहीं
हम
लेते।
ये भी
नहीं
लेते
लेते।
थे।
नहीं लेते। नहीं लेते। लिखा के दिया मैंने। लिखा के दिया मैंने बुक में। कल आएगा, देख लेना।
ओके।
हाँ, लिखा के दिया कि वो इंक्लूड नहीं होता है। राइट, सेक्शन सी में आया क्वेश्चन तो। मालूम है ना मेरे को क्या बोल रहे हो तुम।
हाँ सर, वो तो पता है फाइनेंस वाला कि
हाँ।
पर अपन सेपरेटली दिखाते हैं ना परचेज
हाँ।
प्राइस पे करके। तो बट
हाँ।
नेसूट में ना वो उन लोग ने नहीं दिखाया बिकॉज
दिखा
वो
है। दिखा है।
नहीं,
आंसर में एंड में है।
ईओक्यू में नहीं दिखाया सर उन लोग ने, उसमें सिर्फ इसमें दिखा है रिसीवेबल और उसमें ना।
हाँ, तो ईओक्यू में नहीं दिखाते ना बेटा। ईओक्यू में इट इज नॉट टू बी शोन व्हाइल कैलकुलेटिंग ईओक्यू, ऑब्वियसली।
हाँ
लिखो चलो, इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन सेक्शन सी थियरी। हाँ सेजल, बोलो, आप कुछ बोल रहे थे।
So where can I find the last four questions
लास्ट फोर क्वेश्चंस
for the section
है।
C one?
ये क्लोवर पुलर हो, ये नए बुक में है मैडम। कैप्लन के नए बुक में है। आप पूछो किसी कैसे मिल जाएगा। ठीक है। सेक्शन सी थियरी, दिसंबर 2025। सबसे पहले है एनपीवी वर्सेस आईआरआर। अरे हाँ भाई, क्या तुमको क्या रिलेशन भाई, एनपीवी वर्सेस आईआरआर का कोई रिलेशन नहीं है। क्या रिलेशन चाहिए?
सर आई फाउंड सम क्वेश्चंस जहाँ पर दे रखा था कि एनपीवी अगर बढ़ेगा तो आईआरआर पे क्या
वो
इम्पैक्ट आएगा।
रिलेशन नहीं होता ना राजा। वो हमने मेन क्लास में हमने डिस्कस किया है कि अगर एनपीवी चेंज होता है, बराबर है, एनपीवी चेंज होता है यानी क्या होता है, या तो आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल क्या है, इंक्रीज या डिक्रीज होता है। वो वैसा क्वेश्चन नहीं है जो तुम बोल रहे हो। वो ये है कि कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल चेंज हुआ तो आईआरआर को क्या होगा। वो अगर आप नोट्स में चेक करेंगे तो दिया हुआ है कि इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट चेंज हुआ तो एनपीवी पे क्या इंपैक्ट होगा। वो रिलेशन थियरी क्वेश्चन नहीं है, ऐसा मेरा बोलना है।
सर आई फाउंड कि वहां पर जो क्वेश्चंस आता है ना, वो बोलते हैं कि एनपीवी बढ़ा है लेकिन आईआरआर पे कोई वो नहीं आया है, मतलब
अरे
इम्पैक्ट नहीं।
हाँ ना भाई, देख ना, देख, एक प्रोजेक्ट 10% रिटर्न दे रहा है, बराबर है,
यस सर।
राइट, आईआरआर उसका 10% है, राइट। अब
यस।
अगर इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट कैश फ्लो कुछ भी चेंज नहीं किया तो आईआरआर चेंज होगा क्या?
नहीं नहीं
नहीं।
सर।
बट मेरा अगर कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल 10 से 15% चेंज कर दूं तो एनपीवी चेंज हो जाएगा क्या?
हाँ सर हो जाएगा।
हाँ, बट उससे आईआरआर पे, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल मैं पैसा कितने में ला रहा हूं, उससे प्रोजेक्ट के रिटर्न को कुछ फर्क पड़ेगा क्या?
नहीं।
नहीं पड़ेगा। तो वही थियरी, थियरी एमसीक्यू है ये,
ठीक है।
थियरी क्वेश्चन नहीं है, राइट। सेक्शन सी थियरी की बात कर रहे हैं। एनपीवी वर्सेस आईआरआर, एडवांटेजेस ऑफ आरओसी, एडवांटेजेस एंड डिसएडवांटेजेस ऑफ आरओसी, यही सेम पे बैक पीरियड। हाँ, अगर किसी को चाहिए था कि सर डिस्काउंटेड पे बैक पीरियड मतलब क्या, बराबर, कुछ नहीं, सेम पे बैक पीरियड, बस खाली डिस्काउंट करना कैश फ्लो को एट व्हाट द डिस्काउंटिंग रेट दैट इज गिवन, ठीक है। बट अगर बेसिक कोई खाली पे बैक पीरियड बोले ना, तो ऑलवेज कंसिडर व्हाट, अनडिस्काउंटेड कैश फ्लोज पे, ठीक है। पे बैक पीरियड के बाद आईआरआर, राइट। फिफ्थ, एडवांटेजेस एंड डिसएडवांटेजेस ऑफ नेट प्रेजेंट वैल्यू, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट। आई डोंट नो व्हाई इस बार मेरे को लगता है ये आईआरआर नहीं तो पे बैक पीरियड का एडवांटेज डिसएडवांटेज, ये सेक्शन सी थियरी के लिए भी है और ए और बी में भी बहुत बार आया हुआ है क्वेश्चन। ए और बी में एनपी वर्सेस आईआरआर हो गया। फिर सेंसिटिविटी एनालिसिस शॉर्ट नोट, सेंसिटिविटी एनालिसिस शॉर्ट नोट। और क्या था, रिस्क वर्सेस अनसर्टेनिटी, बहुत बार आया है रिस्क वर्सेस अनसर्टेनिटी। रिस्क वर्सेस अनसर्टेनिटी हो गया ना, के बाद
सर कैपिटल रैशनिंग।
कैपिटल रैशनिंग नहीं, एक और है ना, सिमुलेशन, सिमुलेशन। उसके बाद एक आता है ईएसी, एक्सप्लेनेशन। ये एक बार आया था, ईएसी का एक्सप्लेनेशन देना, मैंने हल्का लिख के दिया है, आप वहां से पॉइंट्स बना के लिख सकते हो। ईएसी का एक्सप्लेनेशन और रिप्लेसमेंट साइकिल का एक्सप्लेनेशन, नहीं उसमें ईएसी और रिप्लेसमेंट साइकिल। हाँ, फिर इन्फ्लेशन मेथड्स एंड इम्पैक्ट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन ऑन कैश फ्लोस, ये एक इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन हो सकता है। और टाइप्स ऑफ कैपिटल रैशनिंग, ये मुझे लगता है मेरे हिसाब से सेक्शन सी के इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है। ये तो आपने मतलब कोई चांस छोड़ना ही नहीं, इतना तो करके ही जाना है। 11 11 22 क्वेश्चन दिए मैंने, 12 13 23 क्वेश्चन, ए और बी मिला के, सॉरी सी में थियोरी और प्रैक्टिकल मिला के। देख लो, अगर समझ में आ रहा है तो ओके, तो फिर आगे बढ़ता हूँ, लिख लिया हो तो।
So,
हम्म
uh, I mean, how should we frame those theory questions? I'm like always confused how to frame it.
See, madam, I have given, if you see in these notes, all these questions are given, right? You should frame it in a very normal English, right? I have given for advantage and disadvantage, I have given headers. You could make a what sentence out of it. No tension. उसको
It's
sentence
not,
बना, हाँ
sorry, it's not that important to write like professional words, like
हाँ
they
नहीं
had.
नहीं नहीं, at this FM level not required. AFM level probably you could think about it, but FM level नहीं,
Oh,
not at all
oh,
required. Correct.
तो
हम्म
आपको सोल्यूशन भेजा है
काय का?
नेसूट का, बस खाली उसमें मुझे वही डाउट था कि फाइनेंस कॉस्ट जो है ना ईओक्यू में नहीं लिया है टू कंप्यूट द ये एग्जिस्टिंग वर्सेस ईओक्यू सिस्टम।
राजू, तेरे को वही बोल रहा हूँ मैं कब से, ये ले बस, आ जा। इन्वेंट्री मैनेजमेंट बराबर है क्या? इकोनॉमिक ऑर्डर क्वांटिटी रीऑर्डर लेवल, देख ले बाबा, देख क्या है एनुअल होल्डिंग कॉस्ट फॉर सेक्शन ए, क्वेश्चन क्या है फॉर
सेक्शन
ईओक्यू
में यस,
कैलकुलेशन। हाँ, और
फाइनेंस
इसमें
में ऐड
क्या
कर
बोला है?
देंगे, इसमें
हाँ
सेपरेटली बताना है।
हाँ, टू बी शोन डिफरेंटली इन टोटल इन्वेंटरी
हाँ
कॉस्ट बट नॉट टू बी यूज्ड एज पार्ट ऑफ, यही तो बोल रहा हूँ मैं तेरे को, लिख के दिया ना भाई, मेरे को मालूम है ना, एग्जामिनर इज नोटोरियस, आई नो दैट। करेक्ट।
अच्छा, होल्डिंग कॉस्ट में नहीं बताया मैंने वो।
अरे राजा, क्यों समझ नहीं रहा है? बाद में भी जब अपन कंपेयर करते ना ईओक्यू वर्सेस नॉर्मल,
हाँ हाँ
उसमें इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट ऐड होता है ना दोस्त, बराबर है ना?
हाँ, वो समझा।
नहीं, वही तो बोल रहा हूं मैं।
मतलब पहले हम लोग परचेज प्राइस निकालते हैं, एनुअल
सिंपल
ऑर्डर
है, एक
होल्डिंग
मिनट
कॉस्ट।
शांति से। इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट अगर दिया है इन अ सेक्शन ए और सेक्शन बी क्वेश्चन,
हाँ,
it will be added as a part of annual holding cost for
होल्डिंग कॉस्ट
calculating EOQ.
ईओक्यू।
Correct?
यस,
But if there is interest cost given in section C questions and EOQ calculation is asked,
हाँ
EOQ will be calculated without considering interest cost. But when
हाँ
you're calculating total cost, at that time interest
हाँ
cost
हाँ
will be a component.
हाँ सर, वो मेरे को समझा,
Inventory cost.
मैंने ईओक्यू भी बराबर कैलकुलेट किया विदाउट
हाँ
इंटरेस्ट को ऐड किए। आप खाली वो
हाँ,
सोल्यूशन देखो ना, उसमें ना
ठीक
वो
है।
फाइनेंस कॉस्ट का जो बोला है उन लोग ने क्वेश्चन में, वो फर्स्ट वाले इसके लिए बोला ना, वही मेरा कंफ्यूजन है कि नेस्टेड कंपनी फाइनेंसेस वर्किंग कैपिटल फ्रॉम एन ओवरड्राफ्ट कॉस्टिंग 4% पर ईयर, तो वो रेलिवेंट नहीं है ना ईओक्यू के लिए, इसके लिए नहीं है ना वहां पे।
अरे वैसा नहीं है, उसके अंदर 4% वो EOQ के लिए रिलेवेंट नहीं है।
नहीं है ना, हाँ वही मेरा डाउट है ना सर,
नहीं,
तो वो
है ही
आएगा
नहीं।
ही नहीं ना फाइनेंस में उधर।
नहीं।
हाँ वही मेरा डाउट था, क्योंकि मेरे को पहले मैंने ले लिया था गलती से।
हाँ,
ओके सर, ठीक है।
चलो भाई लोग, ये तुम्हारा सेक्शन सी का इंपॉर्टेंट है, राइट? ये वाला सेक्शन सी प्रैक्टिकल, और सेक्शन सी क्या है? थियोरी। एक मेरे को बस 10-15 मिनट दो, मेरे को खाली एक एनपीवी ना, मेरे को ऐसा लगता है वो क्वेश्चन आएगा, राइट? मैं आपको बताता हूँ मैं क्या बोलने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है? एक ही सेकंड आ जाओ, जस्ट अ सेकंड। हैव यू सीन द एनपीवी का ये, हाँ, फुल फ्लेज एनपीवी देख रहे हो आप? ये इज द एक्सेल शीट विजिबल गाइस? बोलो।
यस सर।
हाँ, मेरे को
यस
ऐसे
सर।
लगता है, मेरे को ऐसे लगता है इस बार अगर एनपीवी का क्वेश्चन आना है, अरे भाई अब बोला ना भाई, तेरे को इतना तो लिख के दिया भाई। लिख के तो दिया भाई फहीम के थियोरी क्वेश्चन कौन से इंपॉर्टेंट है, ठीक है? आ जाओ। मेरे को ऐसे लगता है ये जो आपका एनपीवी का अप्रोच है ना, ऐसे मेरा मानना है, देखो क्या कर रहा हूं, इफ आई एड डेप्रिसिएशन ईयर, सुनो सुनो क्या कर रहा हूं, देखो डेप्रिसिएशन भले ही नॉन कैश है, इधर से डिडक्ट करता हूं डेप्रिसिएशन. नाउ टेल मी, इफ आई डिडक्ट डेप्रिसिएशन फ्रॉम ईयर, बच्चे लोग, व्हाट आई विल गेट ईयर? विल आई गेट नेट ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो और विल आई गेट नेट ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट्स?
प्रॉफिट्स.
प्रॉफिट्स बिफोर टैक्स, बराबर है, आराम से, राइट. उसके बाद इसमें से मैंने कॉर्पोरेशन टैक्स ऑन डैश डैश परसेंट ऑन नेट ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट्स बिफोर टैक्स, ठीक, राइट. फिर मेरे को टैक्स शील्ड ऑन टीएडी करने की जरूरत नहीं है.
यस
आई
सर.
विल एड बैक डेप्रिसिएशन. सुनो, एड बैक क्या करूंगा, जो डेप्रिसिएशन ऊपर डिडक्ट किया है उसको एड बैक कर दूंगा. जो डेप्रिसिएशन इधर ऊपर किया है ना, विच आई हैव डिडक्टेड ऊपर, नॉन कैश, वापस एड बैक, जो पहले डिडक्ट किया था खाली टैक्स कैलकुलेशन के लिए, उसको एड बैक कर दूंगा. यही डेप्रिसिएशन को नेगेटिव का पॉजिटिव कर दूंगा, सेम डेप्रिसिएशन अमाउंट को, करेक्ट. एंड देन क्या मिलेगा रे मेरे को? फिर मेरे को नेट ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो आफ्टर टैक्स मिल जाएगा क्या? देख लो,
यस सर.
देख लो. हाँ, यही मैं बोल रहा था, ठीक है. फिर इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट स्क्रैप वैल्यू, मे बी एक बार क्वेश्चन आया है पिछले इसमें, दैट दे हैड नॉट गिवन सेल्स, वेरिएबल कॉस्ट, फिक्स कॉस्ट, कुछ भी नहीं दिया, कुछ भी नहीं दिया, नथिंग गिवन, राइट. दे डायरेक्टली गेव डेप्रिसिएशन एंड दे गेव नेट ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट्स बिफोर टैक्स. क्या दिया? पीबीआईटी. इसको क्या बोल सकते हैं आप?
पीबीआईटी.
पीबीआईटी, पीबीआईटी दे दिया, या ईबीआईटी, जो भी बोलना है, ठीक है. ईबीआईटी बराबर है क्या? देखो, पीबीआईटी या ईबीआईटी दे दिया, उसमें से आपने टैक्स माइनस कर दिया, बट ईबीआईटी और डेप्रिसिएशन के लिए डिटेल दे दिया, समझ रहे हो? तो पीबीआईटी से क्वेश्चन स्टार्ट होगा, इसके ऊपर टैक्स डिडक्ट होगा, फिर वो क्या बोलेंगे, ईबीआईटी, या ऐसा भी बोल सकते, एक और लाइन ऐड करता हूं इधर, प्रॉफिट बिफोर इंटरेस्ट, डेप्रिसिएशन एंड टैक्स, बराबर है. ये हो गया फिर डेप्रिसिएशन इसमें से डिडक्ट किया, नेट ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट बिफोर टैक्स लिया, बराबर है. ऐसा कुछ अगर दे दिया तो आप इसके लिए भी रेडी रहना, हो सकता है यू माइट गो दिस रूट, क्योंकि एएफएम में बहुत कॉमन है ये आने का, राइट. कि डेप्रिसिएशन ऊपर डिडक्ट किया, फिर टैक्स कैलकुलेट कर लिया, फिर डेप्रिसिएशन वापस ऐड बैक कर दिया, ठीक है.
सो इसका एग्जांपल क्वेश्चन है कोई अभी
एफएम में तो कोई भी एग्जाम्पल क्वेश्चन इसका है नहीं.
मतलब कहीं एएफएम से कुछ ऐसा सेम में?
एएफएम से कुछ मैं आज आपको जमेगा तो डाल दूंगा कि क्या है, उतना ही क्वेश्चन आता है, राइट. आज डाल दूंगा उसका क्वेश्चन, मैं डाल दूंगा, यू कैन सॉल्व इट, नो प्रॉब्लम.
डाल दीजिए प्लीज.
उसमें डायरेक्टली क्या आएगा, पीबीआईटी दिया हुआ होगा, या नेट ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो बिफोर टैक्स दिया होगा, ऐसा कुछ दिया होगा, या नेट ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट्स बिफोर टैक्स. देखना आप खाली शांति से.
पीबीआईटी के बाद टैक्स माइनस कर देंगे और
हाँ, टैक्स,
डेप्रिसिएशन ऐड हो
पीबी
जाएगा.
नहीं नहीं, पीबीआईटी में ऑलरेडी टैक्स डेप्रिसिएशन माइनस होता है क्या? यस. अगर मैं देखो, मैंने अगर यहां से क्वेश्चन शुरू किया और आपको दे दिया कि क्या करना है, एनपीवी निकालना है, ठीक है, तो पहले आप टैक्स माइनस करेंगे, फिर डेप्रिसिएशन को जोड़ेंगे, नेट ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो आफ्टर टैक्स आ गया, फिर क्या करेंगे, इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट, स्क्रैप वैल्यू, वर्किंग कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट, एंड देन नेट कैश फ्लो, फिर डिस्काउंट. समझ में आया?
यस.
मे भी, हो सकता है, मैं ये बोल रहा हूं, आई जस्ट डोंट वांट यू टू बी स्टार्टल्ड इन द एग्जाम, और सॉरी आ गया, राइट. आई वांट यू टू बी कंफर्टेबल, राइट.
एंड जब पीबीआईटी से आया तो डेप्रिसिएशन डिडक्ट करके नेट ऑपरेटिंग
हाँ,
कैश फ्लो
पीबीआईटी
एंड
बिफोर
टैक्स.
डेप्रिसिएशन एंड टैक्स आया,
हाँ.
पीबीआईडीटी, जो भी बोलना है, एबिटा बोलते हैं इसको, अर्निंग्स बिफोर इंटरेस्ट, टैक्स, डेप्रिसिएशन एंड अमोर्टाइजेशन, एबिटा. EBI TDA, अर्निंग्स बिफोर इंटरेस्ट डेप्रिसिएशन एंड टैक्स, ऐसा। यह आया तो पहले डेप्रिसिएशन, बट मैंने एबिटा, बहुत अनकॉमन, बहुत रेयर है, बट ऐसा क्वेश्चन आ सकता है। हैज बीन आस्क्ड बिफोर एंड विल बी आस्क्ड इन द फ्यूचर। देख लो, राइट? दिस इज हाउ यू रोल अराउंड विथ व्हाट, टेल मी योर
सर
FM
एक
का
मिनट ऊपर स्क्रॉल कर दो।
इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल।
ऐसे कोई अलग क्वेश्चन वर्किंग कैपिटल या इसमें है?
क्या?
ऐसे कुछ डिफरेंट वर्किंग कैपिटल वगैरह और
नहीं,
specific-
वर्किंग कैपिटल में मैंने सब कुछ ले लिया है,
ओके
एवरीथिंग। वर्किंग कैपिटल बोलो, आप इन्फ्लेशन बोलो, सब कुछ ले लिया है, आपके पास सब कुछ है। मेरे को खाली ये एक, मेरे को क्या मालूम, ऐसा मेरे को लग रहा है इस बार, ऐसे दिल से लग रहा है कि ये प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी अप्रोच वाला क्वेश्चन है ना, इज अ व्हाट प्रोबेबल क्वेश्चन इन एग्जाम, राइट? तो मेरा ऐसे कल वर्किंग कैपिटल हो जाएगा तो आपका जो वी हैव दैट व्हाट प्री मॉक जो है ना, उसका एक सेक्शन बी, सेक्शन सी क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर दूंगा मैं कल। टुडे आई थिंक वी कैन, क्योंकि इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल प्रोबेबली इफ यू वांट टू पास, ऐसा मेरे को लगता है, राइट? आप बगैर इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल एग्जाम में जा ही नहीं सकते, तो लॉजिकली एवरीबॉडी वुड हैव व्हाट डन इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल, होपफुली अच्छे से किया है, करेक्ट? नॉट डन तो अभी भी टाइम नहीं गया, मेरे जो नोट्स है आप उससे भी पढ़ेंगे तो आप सारे एमसीक्यू ऑलमोस्ट सॉल्व कर पाओगे, बराबर है क्या? बाकी फिर आप जैसा पढ़ो वैसा कर सकते हो, ठीक है?
Sir,
हाँ,
I have only solved MCQs from Study Hub. So will it suffice or should I solve
ठीक
from
है, कोई
anything else?
प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। नाउ एट दिस मोमेंट, सी आई विल टेल यू वेरी ऑनेस्टली, नाउ एट दिस मोमेंट चेंजिंग नोट्स, चेंजिंग दिस, now from this last 10 days don't change books now. Now you only have to focus on what I'll tell you. Simply you have to focus on whatever you have done, correct? Revise it more and more times, make it perfect. Every MCQ from the study of, if you have done, now solve it twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, whatever it is, right? The more you revise with the same books, the better it will be. Now if you open up anything new, then हाँ, मेरे notes है, my notes are very, you know, वैसे हल्का फुल्का, you don't have to think too much, correct? हाँ देव बोलो।
Sir, you have given some new format of NPV, but sir, I have solved previously, like previous questions with old format, which you have
हाँ
previously given to us. If you remember, like,
हाँ
bench, तो सर वो चलेगा ना?
हाँ भाई, मैंने तो ये देखो तीनों फॉर्मूला दिए क्लास में, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि मैंने नहीं दिया है। ये फॉर्मूला, ये फॉर्मेट भी दिया है जो तुम्हारे पास है पुराना वाला,
तो सर
रीशफल्ड भी दिया है एक, राइट? और एक एनपीवी प्रॉफिट अप्रोच। मैं तो बोल रहा हूँ भाई तीनों करके जाओ।
ठीक है सर।
हाँ, मैं
सर
ऐसा किधर नहीं बोला कि तुमने वो किया तो गलत है, या मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ वही सही है। मैं बोल रहा हूँ ये एडिशनल है, आ सकता है।
सर
सर दो पता है, तीन कैसे?
अरे एक
एक
रीशफल्ड भी
जो
दिया था
अभी
ना रे
बताया
राजू,
आपने।
अरे ये रीशफल्ड भी दिया था ना रे, ऐसा क्या कर रहा है?
सर उसमें वो इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट और स्क्रैप वैल्यू को ही तो नीचे करना है, और कुछ तो उतना है नहीं उसमें।
हाँ बट फिर भी अगर तुमको क्वेश्चन दे दे नेट ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो आफ्टर टैक्स, बराबर है ना?
तो
क्वेश्चन में दे
यस।
दे सेक्शन ए या बी में नेट ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो आफ्टर टैक्स ये है, इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट इतना है, स्क्रैप वैल्यू इतना है, वर्किंग कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट इतना है, दे सकता है ना?
यस।
मैंने देके रखेला, बढ़िया है। तुमको मालूम होना चाहिए वेर यू आर वेटिंग इन दैट फॉर्मेट बेसिकली,
ओके सर।
ठीक है? हाँ शायद बोलो।
सर ये नोट्स व्हाट्सएप पे आ जाएंगे ना ग्रुप में?
हाँ ये नोट्स तो मैंने आपको आई थिंक सॉफ्ट कॉपी इसका लिंक शेयर कर दिया ना नोट्स का
व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप
ग्रुप
में?
में। हाँ ग्रुप में किया ना शेयर मैंने।
हाँ सर
सर
आगे।
जैसे मुझे नेक्स्ट क्लासेस लेनी है, मतलब फाइव
हाँ
वो F4 वगैरह के लिए,
हाँ,
तो आपसे लूँ तो कैसे लेंगे?
तो आप मेरे को कांटेक्ट करो आज शाम को 8:30 के बाद, कॉल करो, बता दूंगा मैं आपको कैसे लेनी है आगे क्लास।
आपका नंबर?
व्हाट्सएप पे है ना भाई, मैं ही करता हूँ ना व्हाट्सएप पे ग्रुप में मैसेज, मैं ही हूँ वो। हमारे इधर कोई मिडल मैन, कोई क्या स्टूडेंट मेंटर वगैरह कोई नहीं, मैं ही ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का ओनर हूँ, मैं ही पढ़ाता हूँ, मैं ही तुम्हारा एडमिशन करूंगा, ठीक है?
जो ये है इसमें SIE ACCA दिसंबर 2025
मैं
रिवीजन,
मैं
ये
मैं
आपकी है?
मैं ही हूँ सुपर इन्फिनिटी एजुकेशन का ओनर, मैं ही हूँ। मैं ही सब करता हूँ, एडमिशन से लेके आपको जो प्रॉमिस करना है वो सब प्रॉमिस भी मैं करता हूँ, प्रॉमिस फुलफिल भी मैं ही करता हूँ। ठीक है। हमारे यहाँ
ओ,
हमारी क्लास कितने घंटे की हो गई रे अपनी क्लास, देखा क्या किसी ने ध्रुविन?
सर ऐसे रिवीजन मिला के सब?
रिवीजन मिला, रिवीजन 10 घंटे मिला ले।
मैंने तो इसका इन्वेस्टमेंट के बीच में से ज्वाइन किया था।
हाँ, तो भी 100+ आवर्स तो हो गई हमारी।
हाँ आराम से।
110 आवर्स तो आराम से। क्या रे प्रणव, प्रणव भी बीच में से, आशीष था ना स्टार्ट से, आशीष और मनन।
यस सर।
हाँ हाँ, बोलो क्या बोल रहे थे देव?
नहीं सर, मैं गैस देने वाला था 80 to 100।
नहीं नहीं, 100+ आवर्स है हमारे। हमारे आई थिंक 40-45 लेक्चर्स हो चुके हैं। हमारा
सर
100+। FM
प्रॉफिट,
जाता ही है 100+आवर्स। हाँ
अभी जो प्रॉफिट वाला फॉर्मेट बताया वो एक्सेल वापस शीट भेज
हाँ,
दो।
वो शेयर कर दूंगा, नो प्रॉब्लम, ठीक है।
और उस पे सम रहेगा तो भी दे दो ना सर।
सम, हाँ वो भी भेजता हूँ, ठीक
हाँ।
है पक्का। चल, आई होप टुडे इज रिवीजन। अभी क्या करना है देखो, मैं आपको एक और ट्रिक बताता हूँ, ठीक है। सीरियल एक ही सेकंड, मैं आपका डाउट लेता हूँ, मैं आपको एक लास्ट ट्रिक बताता हूँ, ठीक है। जैसे अभी आज आपने सारे क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर लिया, मैंने 13 क्वेश्चन 23 क्वेश्चन दिए आपको, आपने सारे 23 कर लिए, सेक्शन ए बी भी कर लिया। अब जैसे 29 को खत्म हो गया अपना, 29 को खत्म हो गया ना, 28 को खत्म होगा रे, 29 ना, 25 26 27 28, 28 को खत्म हो जाएगा ना अपना, बराबर है ना?
यस सर।
हाँ, 28 को खत्म होने के बाद मैं होता ना अगर, तो मैं क्या करता, 29 को मॉर्निंग में ये लेक्चर वापस चलाता। सुनो, पहले का जो 1.5-2 घंटा था बिफोर ब्रेक, समझ रहे हो, पूरा सुनता वापस, ठीक है। फिर हर एक क्वेश्चन वापस सॉल्व करता। ऐसे ही 24 घंटे अगले, मतलब आज सुबह सुना, फुल डे में सारे क्वेश्चन इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेजल के लगा दिए। नेक्स्ट डे कल जो क्वेश्चन होगा, 1.5-2 घंटे में पूरा सुन लिया, आराम से आंख बंद करके एक 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 या नोट्स लेके एक 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 चीज क्या करते गया। हाँ, ये मालूम आता है, ये 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 आता है। जो नहीं आता है वहां पे डिटेल में गया, देखा रे ऐसा करना है, वैसा करना है, ये करना, वो करना, ऐसे करना, वो सारा मार्क कर लिया, ठीक है। सारे क्वेश्चन उस दिन में वर्किंग कैपिटल प्लस जो थियरी चैप्टर थे उसके लगा लिए। फिर थर्ड डे पे वापस सुबह कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल लगा लिया, उसके सारे क्वेश्चन डे में कर लिए। फिर फॉरेक्स, इंटरेस्ट रेट, रिस्क, ऐसा एग्जाम में जाने से पहले एक और बार हो गया ना, पूरा रिवीजन प्लस सारे क्वेश्चन, पूरा रिवीजन प्लस सारे क्वेश्चन, तो आपका एकदम परफेक्ट हो जाएगा। आई हैव हैड स्टूडेंट्स जिनका ये 2 बार हुआ है, मेरे साथ एक बार, उसके बाद 2 बार हुआ है, एंड देव स्कोर्ड 60-65+ मिनिमम। बराबर है क्या? अब बेटा उसका मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता फाइम भाई, राइट, वो आप यू कैन, अब 2 पेपर है तो उसका मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता। आप 29 तक, 28 तक करो, 2 से लेके 5 में आप कर सकते हो, 2 3 4 में, 3 दिन में करो, 5 दिन की जगह पे हो सकता है। जिनको 5 तारीख तक टाइम है, 28 को खत्म हो गया, 29 30 29 31, 3 दिन में आप कर सकते हैं ये, और नेक्स्ट 3 दिन में वापस करो, खत्म हो गया। 2 बार तो हो सकता है, उसके बाद 6 दिन में 2 बार आराम से हो सकता है, राइट। आपने एक बार क्वेश्चन देख लिए, खाली फिर सुनना है। एग्जाम को जाने से पहले एक रात पहले अगर ये 4.5-5 घंटे का पूरा, अच्छा 6 घंटे का रिवीजन होगा, आप यूट्यूब से डायरेक्ट क्या उधर ही देखना शुरू करो, ठीक है। वो यूट्यूब पे अपलोड हो जाएगा रात को, ठीक है, उसका लिंक डल जाएगा ग्रुप में।
सर डॉकेट पे आपका आ गया है ना क्लास का?
आ गया, फुल
ठीक है।
टाइम देना पड़ेगा, फुल टाइम में मेरा नाम है।
फुल टाइम में? ठीक है।
यस, चलो फिर एवरीबॉडी, आई होप आई कुड हेल्प यू अ बिट फॉर योर प्रिपरेशंस। थोड़ा सा आपको इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन हो गया, इंपॉर्टेंट, और जो लोग फर्स्ट टाइम आए हैं फॉर समथिंग, राइट, किधर से भी करो यार फहीम, जिधर तुमको जो मिलता है वो करो यार, राइट, जो मिलता है जहां मिलता है। थैंक यू शायद, हाँ सेजल आपको कुछ पूछना था, सॉरी।
Sir, there is this chapter called ratio analysis, and I haven't
हाँ,
done it, so it's not
देखो मैं आपको
important.
रेशियो एनालिसिस सिंपल बताता हूँ, ठीक है। जब बाय द एंड ऑफ द पोर्शन ना बेटा, सारे रेशियोज हो जाएंगे, खाली 1 या 2 रेशियो बच जाते हैं जो मैं एंड में लेता हूँ, डिविडेंड कवर और 1 2 है, वो भी मैंने सारे पोर्शन में कवर कर लिए है। तो अगर एक क्वेश्चन आया है कि रेशियो एनालिसिस करो, तो सारे रेशियो एक जगह पे क्या है, कैलकुलेट कर देना। मैं एंड में आपको, मेरे को याद दिला देना, 4th डे पे मैं आपको उसका क्या दे दूंगा, मेरे पास एक छोटा शीट है वो दे दूंगा, उसपे सारे रेशियोज है, चलेगा?
Okay, thank you.
हाँ, कोई टेंशन नहीं, रेशियो एनालिसिस का टेंशन मत लो, ठीक है, क्योंकि वो ना वर्किंग कैपिटल और कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल में सारे रेशियोज हो जाते हैं। इधर आरओसी देखा आपने, आरओसी इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द रेशियोज, तो आरओसी पीबीआईटी छोटे छोटे रेशियोज है, ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट परसेंटेज, वो होते होते सब जगह होते हैं, राइट।
पर मुझे अब भी याद आया, मैंने भी नहीं किया है वो चैप्टर।
कुछ नहीं, वो क्वेश्चन वो चैप्टर में कुछ भी नहीं है, अपना खाली डिविडेंड कवर था, वो भी हमने कर लिया, डिविडेंड कवर रेशियो जो था ना उतना,
यस।
उतना एक हो गया तो हो गया, क्योंकि सारे रेशियोज अपने यहाँ पे हो चुके, तो कोई टेंशन वाला बात नहीं है। मेरे पास एक जगह पे है एएफएम में भी लिखे हुए सारे रेशियोज, वो मैं आपसे शेयर कर दूंगा, उतने खाली रेशियोज आप उसमें के 90% रेशियोज हुए, 5-10% जो रेशियो है वो आप, यानी रेशियो सारे हुए लेकिन उसको एक जगह पे लिखा है मैंने बराबर से, उतना ही खाली करना है आपको।
सर
हाँ,
एक स्पाइन कंपनी करके क्वेश्चन है, उसमें दे
कौन
हैव
सा?
आस्क्ड
हाँ
इवैल्यूएट वेदर ऑन फाइनेंशियल ग्राउंड स्पाइन कंपनी शुड फाइनेंस द एक्सपेंशन विद डेट और इक्विटी। जस्ट
हाँ,
स्पेसिफाई नहीं किया कि ईपीएस निकालो, पी निकालो, टीआरपी निकालो, तो इसमें सारे ही
कॉस्ट
निकालने
ऑफ
हैं।
कैपिटल, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल उसमें क्या
हाँ
है, डेट या इक्विटी में जाना, कैसे डिसाइड करते हो, डेट
हाँ,
में जाना है
और
इक्विटी जाना, तीन
विच आर
थियरी है ना। नहीं, स्पाइन कंपनी बोलो, वो तो
हाँ
ईपीएस और पी रेशो नहीं दिया तो गियरिंग रेशो निकालने का उस
नहीं
हिसाब से।
नहीं, उन्होंने बोला है कि इवैल्यूएट वेदर ऑन फाइनेंशियल ग्राउंड्स, तो मैंने सारे रेशियो निकाले, फिर ईपीएस,
हाँ
पी, इंटरेस्ट कवर, टीआरपी और
ठीक है ना,
गियरिंग।
तो हमने जितना दिया वो सारे कर सकते हैं ना, कोई
हाँ,
टेंशन नहीं।
मतलब ऐसा स्पेसिफाई नहीं किया था, बाकी क्वेश्चंस में
ठीक
बताया
है,
ना कि ईपीएस निकालो, टीआरपी निकालो, इस
मैं तो
तरह।
बोल रहा हूँ ना, अपना देखो, आपने जितने नाम लिए वो सारे रेशियो तो हो चुके हैं क्लास में, मेरे पास
हाँ
एक शीट पे लिखा हुआ है, मैं वो थर्ड डे या फोर्थ डे पे लेके आ जाऊंगा, पूरी शीट है, आपको एक जगह पे सारे रेशियोज मिल जाएंगे, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। ठीक है,
ओके सर।
चलो फिर गाइस, ओके, आई होप आई कुड हेल्प अ बिट, आई होप आप लोग थोड़ा सा क्या है कंफर्टेबल हो रहे हैं, कल परसों और 3 दिन में पूरा पोर्शन एकदम बढ़िया से हो जाएगा, आप चिंता मत करना, ठीक है। चलो, बाय बाय, वी विल मीट टुमारो 2 PM, टिल देन टेक केयर ऑफ योर हेल्थ, बाय बाय,
थैंक यू सर।
राइट सर।
Thank you.
वेलकम, बाय।